Happy Wednesday, everybody. Let's do a quick review. Howdy, everybody. Welcome to another show. I don't really have too much to discuss right now. I haven't been watching a lot of YouTube lately. Although I have a few things that there's a new Darth video out there that I found that is fairly annoying. I think I'm going to take a look at it. So I might be doing that later, possibly this weekend. But I did want to kind of go over this. So I had a live stream last Friday. I ended up, instead of me reviewing part of Doug's last big live stream, he ended up joining me. We ended up having a conversation that kind of didn't really go anywhere. I haven't put it up yet because I was going to splice it to try to make some shorts. Although I think I may have actually just permanently deleted it because I didn't know what I was doing. But I think it might just be privated, and my plan was to just slice them up. So anyway, the full convo is not available right now, and it wasn't particularly good. But Doug did make a short out of it in the short amount of time that it was up. So I guess that's a compliment. Probably not. But in this, I think this is supposed to count as a gotcha. So I'm not sure, but I'm going to take a look at it real quick, and probably some of the comments in there, because some of the comments in there are kind of crazy. So I wanted to go over them in case there was like questions or confusions about this kind of stuff, because if you get into politics and you want to like throw around accusations about what you are convinced this person's ideology is, but you don't really understand the ideology that you're talking about, maybe don't tack that onto your opponent or even a friend. So let's say hello to a few people here. Nitty is here. Good to see you. Nicole Wilson is here. What has Pine Nut said now? Oh, we're going to get into them. Viclet is here. Good to see you. Red Fang is here. Good to see you. Red Fang. Some of the comments in here, Red Fang, they kind of reminded me of you, because Brojo, I think, weighed in on this. Hillary's emails, I think, is in some of the comments in this one. In fact, Hillary's emails writes like a little mini diatribe against me. So that one I'm going to try to find and take a look at. Mr. Fabiano's here. Good to see you. Pinworm is here. I'm trolling Jay Dyer. Oh, enjoy that, Nitty. I proposed an objection to determinism, and his chat ignored it. Yeah, I can imagine they probably would. Kent Hoven CPA, good to see you. Let's see. You're a psychopath and also super gullible. That's pretty much the only reason I can think of. Oh yeah, the title. Yeah, maybe I could have used that one, but we'll get into that here in a bit. Not you, by the way. It would have been fine. I mean, I've been called much worse. So, and who knows? Maybe I am a psycho. Fabio, this better be good, Jefferson, because I just paused watching the doc From Russia with Lev. Okay, I'll get into the spicy stuff then. We'll let me shrink myself down here and maximize this real estate. Okay. Hillary doesn't like you and Jay. Well, that's interesting. He watches my show enough, but okay. But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Red Fang, isn't Hillary's emails kind of like, is he the prepper guy? He's sort of like this end of the world libertarian, like Nick Offerman's character in The Last of Us, that's maybe I'm thinking of a different guy. Liz Allen is here. Good to see you. All right. Okay. So let's get into this. So this is a quick one. It's just a basic short. And I'll play this and then we'll get going. Hopefully the sound is on. The sound is on. Okay. Let's roll that footage.
Let me ask you this. Like, I can totally understand why some people would vote for Harris over Trump. I totally get it. Can you understand why some people would vote for Trump over Harris?
Yeah, they're fascists.
Can you think of a good reason other than...
No.
let me ask you this. Like, I can totally understand why some people would vote for Harris over Trump. I totally get it. Can you understand why some people would vote for Trump over Harris?
Yeah, they're fascists.
Can you think of a good reason other than...
No. So I guess that this is supposed to be a gotcha. I don't see how it is. I really do sincerely believe that if Trump is appealing to you in any way, he's probably appealing to you, to a part of you that is kind of longing for some kind of autocratic power, mostly being utilized by that strong man against your lessers or your enemies or the people that are making things insecure and weak or hazardous for you. So I'm not exaggerating this by trying to say that I really do think that most people that are voting for Trump, the vast majority, are motivated by a fascination with and an appeal that they see in fascism. And who would have thought 40 years ago that you would see at a mainstream Republican candidate convention elderly citizens gleefully holding up signs that said mass deportations now? That's usually the kind of state and government authority power show that Republicans traditionally did not like, when they tended to be, more of their populism was based on crafting an anti-government, anti-administration, deregulated economy. The idea of using the power of the state in such a sweeping way was generally not like, or it was much more vague. They would couch it, I'm a law and order guy. I'm a law and order candidate. We're going to have law and order again. So it was a lot more dog whistly. But now they're actively just out there like, not only do you have the older guy running for president, just saying, yeah, we're gonna use local law enforcement and we're gonna pay lots and lots of money, because it's going to cost lots of money to do these mass deportations. So the government's going to spend a lot of money to perform this Operation Deport everybody. And you're going to be deporting people who have been living here and contributing to the economy and the tax base. So it's a lose-lose in terms of most economics. And most people will tell you, the statistics show the vast majority of people that have remained here, even the people that are in the undocumented or the illegal camp or whatever, are working and paying taxes without representation. But then you end up having the second guy, the VP, go into a debate and essentially try to make the situation sound better by saying, you know what, that mass deportation thing, maybe there's some of you who are on the fence about that whole thing, but that's actually our housing plan. Because once we kick all these illegal people out of here, all those homes will be empty and you'll be able to move right in. Okay. I'm trying to figure out exactly how that's going to happen, because the reality is the people that are going to be deported if Trump gets in are not the people that they just showed crossing the southern border illegally, right? Those people committed a crime when they did that. But if they were processed and got an asylum claim through and now have a pending court date, they are now here. They're here legally. They are legal asylum seekers. Now, if they're told that they're not going to get asylum, if a judge rules against them once they do have their case and they don't leave, well, then they're here. They're remaining here illegally. In fact, the vast majority of illegal permanent residents that are here, I mean, they're not technically permanent residents, but they're here long term. I think it's something like 3/5 of them overstayed a visa. They didn't even commit the crime of crossing the border seeking asylum. They came here legally. They vacation, trip. Maybe they had a temporary work visa that they came in on, and it expired, and they didn't get another one lined up, and there's big gaps in it. So, and our stuff is so broken that if administratively, if there's a gap in it, and you go to apply for a new one, basically out yourself, then you're going to get removed. And when they increase the penalties for being here illegally, I think for any amount of time, you get sent back for something like 25 years. Or permanently, depending on how long you've already been here. It's crazy. So anyway, I digress. That's been the appeal The appeal is what we're going to do. Trump sets the thing up. I'm a law and order guy. So what we're going to do is this is a popular thing that people really want. We need to do something about these people here that are draining the strength from the country. They're poisoning the lifeblood of America or whatever. All these kinds of these people they're not like us. They're they're lesser. The longer they're here, they have a corrosive effect on us. And what we need to do is we need to remove them forcibly if necessary. And right now, Trump is declaring that it's necessary. So he's basically promising some sort of half-assed crystal knot. And then the other dude is coming around and justifying the expense of it by saying, yeah, it's also for breeding room. So, okay, but most of that breeding room thing's not going to matter anyway. The point I was going to make about that is that the vast majority of the people that are going to get removed, these kind of long-term people that have stayed here, if they were property owners, if they're freeing up a house, more than likely they're married. These are the people that are going to end up getting forced out, or might be in a kind of a long-term relationship. They're never legally married, but they are living with essentially their spouse. They have kids. They're going to be removed, so they're going to break up a family. It's either going to be the husband or the mom. And the reason that they own a house is probably in the American citizen's name. So you didn't free up a house. You just tore apart a family and removed somebody's coworker, somebody's friend, somebody's cousin. And you spend an enormous amount of money to do that, to cost the economy even more. Both of those are going to have a drag effect on the economy. Then you couple that with some of the ideas that he's got about tariffs and stuff, and you're looking at a pretty good hop, skip, and jump straight into a bad recession. So economically, not checking out. We don't have good stuff there. If somebody tries to say this. Now, getting to the other point that he was making, I think what Doug's trying to do. Do you understand that, like, if I don't know if he's really trying to ask me a question this obviously stupid, do you understand that somebody could cite a reason why they'd want to vote for Trump that might be a reason that you'd agree with? Like, I agree that they're concerned about the economy if they say they're voting for Trump for the economy, but I don't think that's why they're voting for Trump. Because if they really cared about the economy, they would look into that issue and be like, wait a minute, are tariffs really going to help us or not? But they don't go that far. The rhetoric that we need to keep immigrants out at all costs and kick out any of the ones that are here is going to boost the economy, and that's as deep as they need to get, tells me that they're not as concerned about the economy as they are about purging the unwelcome and unwanted from our shores. That tells me that they are teetering into fascism. That's what they're fascinated with. That's what appeals to them. That's a feature. It's not a glitch or a bug. And I think Doug is doing this kind of apologetic, like, well, sure, it'll be harsh, and sure, you won't like it, and sure, it's going to be nasty, and maybe it doesn't have all the touchy-feely stuff on it that the Democrats like to put on it, the wrapping paper and the bow and all that kind of stuff. But really, when you get down to it, these pragmatic policies are really going to make a difference. Like, I agree that they're going to make differences, but I don't agree that they're pragmatic. Kicking a bunch of people out is not going to help the economy. It's going to help the overtime pay of the law enforcement and military people that you use to go do that. But at the same time, like, while you're using them on that, couldn't they be doing something else, maybe more productive? So, let's see here. Immigration is a net plus for, it generally is. So he has no idea what a fascist is. I do have some idea what a fascist is. That's like the top ranked comment in there. Maybe I'll reply to that one. To say something so vague and untrue while having that level of confidence is astounding. Thank you. You people act like no nuance exists and that everything you think is just so great and above everyone else. I'm so glad you sanctimonious liberals are here to tell me how wrong I must be for voting a certain way. Thank you for your moral superiority. I don't know if I could survive without it. Well, I mean, it's not moral superiority. Somebody could say that I'm not being morally superior for holding my nose and voting for a candidate that is a liberal. I'm not a liberal. He thinks I am because I'm against Trump. And in the United States, kind of cross-eyed, drooling off out one side of our mouths, political system, liberal just means, leftist or not conservative. They're the feel sorry for, the bleeding heart liberal hippie and the tree hugger. I'm not a liberal in the sense that liberals tend to be pro-democracy. I am, but they're not the only ones that are pro-democracy. And I'll get into my own ideas in a little bit. The lack of empathy is astounding. I don't have a lot of empathy. I do not have empathy for people who are motivated to vote on their insecurities and their identity politics. I can sympathize with them because I was motivated to vote that way when I was a young conservative. So I do get it. And trust me when I tell you what motivated me was usually anger, fear, and quite a bit of ignorance. I had to put some miles on a library card before that started to kind of shift and move in a different direction. Fascist is an empty insult like racist. No, it's not. I don't think Trump supporters get to complain about a lack of empathy. This person who was complaining about empathy just accused another person of Trump derangement syndrome. Oh, okay, then they're done. Like, I don't want you to so glibly just write off my reasons for voting for a conservative. You just have TDS. Like, okay, I see what you did there. I don't think that you did. Yeah, tell that to anyone who has studied the history of World War II. Yeah, fascists, it's a real thing. You mean back when there were actual fascists? There are still fascists now. Generally, a fascist is going to be somebody who is authoritarian. They believe in, usually, they do believe in some kind of strong state, or at the very least, a state that is used strongly to defend the rights of kind of the traditional propertied class. You will see appeals to tradition, hard work, family values, both of them combined, although it gets even vaguer when they put it in the family values category. And then they will use harsh rhetoric to essentially say that we will violently and aggressively defend these kind of vague seeming things from the ravages of modernization or change or communists, people with different ideas about the economy in general. But let's face it, from the perspective of the United States, the big concern is socialists and communists. And anybody else that's either anti-capitalist or just wants to see more democratization of our current form of capitalism. All of those people are the enemy. And the state generally is not a good thing unless it is being directed at the use of violently maintaining law and order, keeping the people in their place. So if you are interested in a strong man kind of politician who is going to use the state. See, this is the big switch. It used to be what you wanted as a conservative, what you needed as a conservative was to have a state that recognized it needed to stay out of your way so you could achieve as much as you wanted. But now they've gotten much more jaded and they're like, you know what? These liberals are going to get in and they're going to use that government against me. So I'm going to vote for a guy who promises me that when he's in power, he will turn the power of the state on them. He's going to go after them. And that seems to be a very popular message for a growing minority of people in this country, where people who will talk about being patriots and this kind of stuff are very, very excited to see what will happen if their enemies get purged. And their enemies are their neighbors, other Americans, but they're not real Americans because they can't possibly be as patriotic as they are because they're anti-Trump. They don't see this. They don't see the value of the strong leader like they do, and therefore there's something wrong. There's something off with them. Maybe they're not willing to go the distance. Bradgerville says poor Jefferson got spatch-cocked. Okay. Spoken like a true Democrat. Cat Bro nailed it. I appreciate that. Crimson King says the reason I think people would vote for Trump is they see the country changing and are scared of change. I think that's part of the reason. But being afraid of change is, I think, motivates a lot of different people in the way that they vote. People are voting. They did this kind of thing a few years ago. There was this push in liberal media sources where they were talking about the misunderstood Trump voter. What you don't understand is that these people are really put upon. The Hillbilly Elegy book, the fact they made a movie out of that was based on that kind of reaction. And then the more they studied it and the more they did surveys on it, the vast majority of Trump voters that popped up in 2016 were motivated to some degree by subjective feelings of being disrespected and race resentment. Those were two big guiding things. It was vibes. It was entirely vibes. It still is vibes. So when Pine Creek asked me, can you think of a good reason? No, I can't. I can think of reasons. These people have plenty of reasons that they will cite. They're not good ones. If they say it's for the economy, I'm going to tell them that they're out of their mind. We had that. Also, the thing that they seem to be forgetting is like, well, hey, there seems to be this attitude of like, well, what could it possibly hurt? We just need to get rid of Biden and anybody associated with him. Let's get Trump. Trump's not even running on his first term, barely. He's basically running with the same speeches and the same pitches that he did when he first ran and won against Hillary. He's acting like, this kind of weird collective amnesia is hit. Like he doesn't have a 4-year first term that we can look at and say, did you do a good job the last time you were in here? Objectively, no, he didn't. See, she said, tariffs are a very good thing. Tariffs can be a good thing. I'm not anti-tariff, but the way that Trump is talking about tariffs does not make sense. Free trade has been terrible for the United States. It depends on what you mean by that, but free trade is objectively bad. I don't know that you can say free trade is objectively bad without really like trying to suss out what you mean by free trade. There is no good argument for free trade. Well, there's no such thing as free trade. Let's see. Protectionism kept the American economy strong until Bush Sr. and Clinton implemented NAFTA. But I mean, NAFTA did do a lot to deindustrialize us, yeah, and it kind of turned us into a financial services kind of country. But hey, Amy, how are you doing? Let's see. The economic stuff is getting kind of hot in the chat. Hearing conservatives complain about a lack of nuance is hilarious. I mean, generally they don't do that. Yeah, they don't do nuance. If we've come from fascists, why are there still fascists? Checkmate, leftists. You'd have good reasons to vote for Trump if you didn't have TDS, I guess. Yeah. You may so sorry you have permanently deleted your last live stream with me because you don't know what you didn't know what you were doing. Okay, the last part makes it sound like you didn't really mean that apology. So okay, whatever. Like I said, I think I archived it, but I'm not sure. I may have binned it. So yeah, working with different software, and I think for some reason with Talk Studio, it enabled me to delete it through YouTube, which is kind of weird. I wouldn't have thought the streaming software could do that, but we'll find out. But I'm not looking it up now. Also, I support restrictions on abortion and abortion pills. Why? Restrictions on pornography and the like. I'm a social conservative. Why would you? We do have restrictions on pornography. How many more restrictions do you want to put on pornography? I guess would be the question. And there are also restrictions on abortion and abortion pills already. So to what extent do you want to restrict it would be the question. Brian, this is a pretty good point from Brian. I always tell people who like what he says. He didn't lock her up. We didn't build the wall. Mexico hasn't given us any money. He promised health care and only has concepts of it. Yeah, all pretty good things. Plus, there's the fact that we were leaning pretty good into having a recession already. But we won't know because COVID hit, and that definitely did just slam us into a recession. So 44 in here, only 7 likes. Maybe there's some hate viewers in here. Good to see you, JL. Why is fascism always the default? This answer that Pine Creek gives, I don't trust any politician to a high degree, probably wise. But I do think our Constitution with checks and balances is good. Then why would you vote for Trump? He's not interested in checks and balances, at least not checks and balances that are consistent. I mean, consider the fact that right now people are getting upset. Still, conservatives are still pearl clutching when people call Trump a criminal. Now, I agree that they had a case to make because before, when Trump was not convicted of anything, calling him a criminal, like you may have believed that he has committed some crimes, but you can't factually and accurately call him a criminal if he's never been convicted of any crime. But now they're still trying to say, oh, they call him a criminal, they call him a fascist, they call him, like he is these things. And if you don't want to deal with the whole fascism thing because you don't think he's smart enough to handle the ideology, or he's not deep enough, or it doesn't matter to him, or whatever, just the fact that there are still conservatives now that will just wave off the TDSers are out there calling Trump a criminal. He technically is one now. So if you vote for him, and early voting is available in many states right now, many people have voted for him, you voted for a crook. So if you believe in Constitution with checks and balances in it and things like that, some of the stuff that he's talking about is based on him having a degree of power that makes him more than even a super citizen. I mean, consider sort of the qualified immunity that cops have only on steroids, as Trump loves to say. I don't think those are good checks and balances. So I am interested in politicians that can demonstrate to me they understand the concept of checks and balances, and Trump can't do that. So, yep, so did I. It's already done. Trump literally crimes on live TV, and only someone as morally and ethically compromised like Doug from Pine Creek will deny. That's cut off there. Will deny the very evidence of their eyes of his crimes. I mean, he should have been prosecuted for the shit that he was doing with the when he was encouraging election interference, but. All right. But yeah, I think in this one, -0, is that SJ? Who is this? Trump is the only president in recent times who's helped world peace. We have warmongers in both parties. We should vote for the person who can make the deals needed to end the wars in Israel and Ukraine. Well, that's okay. End it in whose benefit? Like, to what degree? Like, how do you want that to work out? Like, it would just be a lot easier. We wouldn't have any war if Ukraine would just, give it to them. Just give it. Just give up. And, I mean, if the Palestinians should just, left Gaza or all of the Levant, I'm sure Israel would be satisfied then once they had all that territory and could achieve their goal of a Zionist ethno-state. Sure. How do you think that's going to work? That's exactly what Trump is going to help do. He agrees with Putin's invasion of Ukraine. So no matter what happened with some type of settlement or agreement, it's going to overwhelmingly benefit Putin. And I should say that I say that intentionally. I don't think anything that would happen with some kind of settlement would benefit Russia, other than that there'd be fewer people having to go fight and die. But anything that he gets done is going to benefit Putin first. Russia, maybe. Vince Burns, I noticed there's no effective rebuttal of Jefferson's assertion. Yeah, but I mean, Doug didn't make a video on the rest of the conversation. But during that part of the conversation, we didn't really get anywhere. I mean, I did try to explain, what I meant by that, but I think Doug was still I think Doug actively was trying to portray me as somebody who would not be able to acknowledge the possibility that I could talk to a Trump supporter and understand when they said, I'm voting for Trump because of the economy. I'm voting for Trump because I'm concerned about the border. I'm still going to tell them, I don't understand what you don't understand about these issues. Like, he's not going to make the border better. The border isn't the issue. Immigration law is the issue. We have a crap immigration system. And it requires a lot more than just being fixated on images on the news of people strolling across the border, getting arrested, and then putting in an appeal for asylum, which is also a completely broken system. And when we have an opportunity to pass legislation to improve that situation and improve that bureaucracy, improve that administration, what's his goal? Nope, we already have what we need. Police and military. We just find them and kick them out. I don't care. Zero tolerance. Get rid of these people. It doesn't matter how long they've been there. It doesn't matter what the families they've developed, the friendships, the connections they have. It doesn't matter how much money they've made the country. This is a good question to ask some of these people. If you're the kind of person that believes, like, hey, there's a guy knocking on the door and he wants to become an American, and he has $2 billion that he's going to give us right now. This dude's wealthy as hell. Oh, well, I guess you have to do that. But if you had an entire community of, say, 40, 50,000 people who made that much money for you over the last 5, 6 to 10 years, that's how much they contributed to the economy. And that might be a conservative estimate. Is it cool to have them? No, of course not. The 40,000 people? No, we're all out of room. It's real crowded here, bro. Like, I do not understand this. Like, if it's one person with tons of money, we need to just roll over and let them do whatever they need to do. Clearly, these people they've been kissed by the gods of money or something. But if it's a small community's worth of people who've worked hard and have consistently contributed to benefit the economy of our country, they get no consideration. William, yeah, good to see you. Considering how much blocking Doug engages in with his comments, he should stop crying like a baby that the full video isn't up. My brother said something about, I think he posted some comments on one of Doug's shorts, and it didn't, I think they got removed because I think they were having a back and forth, and I think Doug killed them all. Is somebody accusing John Fapiano of stirring stuff up? That's not usually John's style. Oh, he said that about Pine Creek. Okay. I could make a video of the rest of the conversation we had if it was made public. Yeah, I'm not doing that for you, pal. The reason I didn't really care about keeping it up was because it basically just ended up being a bullshit session between the two of us, and it didn't even match the description I originally gave it. So, and I don't think, yeah, it probably won't come back. I mean, I always say that I'll take that and edit my own shorts out of it or something like that, but I hate editing. So he doesn't allow comments if you're not subscribed. Seems cowardly to me. I don't no, I don't know necessarily. I don't think that affects comments after the video though. I mean, because you could do subscribers only when you post that. I don't necessarily disagree with that, but no, whatever the comments that I'm thinking of, it was from somebody who subscribes to his channel. They had a back and forth, and Pine Creek deleted it. Yeah, bro, Joseph Spatchcock, high TDS. I think it's hilarious that these guys, this trope is still being used. The Trump derangement syndrome. If you cannot like take a breath and adjust to the reality that the guy that you're voting for is a 34-time felon now, right? And if you blow that off and be like, but those aren't real crimes, or it was a motivated court, or something like that, I just want to put in your head that those are the kinds of things that Trump says immigrants do when they get their day in court. They're trying to shirk it. They're trying to make excuses. They don't want to accept real justice. Right. But if it's Trump, then there's obviously some kind of like, oh, there was a star chamber. It was fixed. It was rigged. Blah, 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 blah. Like, no. It was the state of New York, and they found him guilty of 34 felons. Quickly, I might add. And an adjudicated rapist. Yes, that too. So yeah, I mean, the idea that like these guys are still like, you guys just have derangement syndrome. You don't understand what's really going on here. Like, okay, so in a civil court, they found him liable for sexual assault and for defamation. Most of us watched that happen in the media, the stuff that he was found, and he was found guilty of defaming the same victim twice. And he is a convicted felon for business fraud. So I'm trying to figure out now exactly how this makes one. So if I have the reason, like, look, and I wonder if Doug accepts this, a reason that I would not vote for Trump, given the fact that I don't agree with the Republican Party about anything policy related and haven't in, the past, 15, 20 years now, 17 years, would be the fact that he's a crook. I don't understand why the Republican Party has not removed him. But in a normal time, in saner times, a Republican Party worthy of respect would not have allowed Donald Trump on the ticket. The only reason that they're allowing him on there is because they know where the winds of change are going, and they know that he would run a spoiler campaign to the right of them and basically deep six their chances of being able to get back into the White House. But Jefferson, that's the deep state liberals controlling everything. Not a deranged take at all. No, not. Who here will have their mental anxieties rise if Trump wins? There probably will be lots of people if they think that abortion is going to be restricted even more, if he is going to not only ignore people in the trans community, but actively criminalize it, say like kicking them out of the military and other things like that. Yeah, their anxieties. Doug, do you think their anxieties are warranted? If you got a guy that's going to come in here, and what if my anxiety is just that, and I'm not saying that this is an actual case for me, but for many people, what if the anxiety is, I don't know when a good friend of mine is going to be collected by law enforcement or the military and sent back to his country of origin, never to return. That wouldn't cause, like, what would happen if that happened to you, Doug? If you knew somebody that was not here legally, you're good friends with them, maybe you didn't even know that they weren't a legal citizen, and then you find, and this person is married, has kids, has friends, is established, has been here a decade, maybe more, and gone. That's gonna raise people's anxiety and anger and isolation, loneliness. cynicism, um, crossing the border illegally is punishable by deportation according to law. Are you against that law? Currently, yes, because of the way that they end up wrapping that into asylum seeking. You, it's punishable by up to deportation. You do understand that with most law enforcement, there is discretion on this kind of stuff. And if you get caught crossing, yeah, you're automatically looking at probably getting kicked back right across the border. But the vast majority of people here that are going to get deported if Trump gets in are not those people, Doug. We've talked about this. It's not the people that you obsess over crossing the border at a non-authorized checkpoint, going across the shallows of the Rio Grande into Texas. That's not who is going to get deported. It's going to be somebody that came here on a tourism visa and stayed, or came here on a work visa and overstayed that work visa. And now there's no avenue legally for them to do anything, because generally when the laws get changed, and the last time there was significant movement in this, I mean, the last big one was, I think, the 96 one that Clinton signed. It was basically to make all of the penalties get jacked way the hell up, because they were going to do strong stuff. Because the news at the time then was that it wasn't that people were staying here too long. It was that they could come over and then do something horrible and then leave. That was the trend then in hysterics theater. So generally, if somebody's going to like do something to like cross a, if they're breaking international law and deportation is a component of that, I don't necessarily have a problem with that. But there is so much wrong and inconsistent with our current border and immigration laws. I can't just say yes or no to a question that's simplistic, because it ain't that simplistic. There's blatant contradictions in the system. For instance, for those of you who may not know this, did you know that once you come over here, let's say that you do come in with the app, you use the phone app, you get in line, and you're requesting asylum. You get your date, you do your transportation, you wait, you go through a regular checkpoint, you get checked in, you are in seeking asylum, you get your court date. There was no illegal crossing at all. But now that you're here, right, and you just fled a country that was actively killing people, let's say, right, and if the government wasn't doing that, the economic system was so bad that your fellow citizens were killing other fellow citizens. So you got the hell out of there, and you got approved for it, and you did everything that you knew how to do, and you did it right. Now you're an asylum seeker with a court date. You are here in the country legally. You can't work legally. You can't legally work after that until you fill out another application to get approved to be an asylum seeking worker. And that can take up to 6 months. So explain why a system, like, if your concern is, I think that anytime somebody crosses that imaginary line, we blow their foot off and we put them in a catapult and we shoot them back over into their home country. Okay, charming, strange. But I think if you have a system that does allow people to legally get asylum and come here, and then you have rules in place that don't allow them to work legally until you do another bureaucratic setup, that you haven't invested enough money in to make it work in a timely way so that they can start working and making money so they can survive here, you have fucked them over. This is not complicated. And that is not their fault. They asked for asylum. They crossed legally. They are here legally. They can't work. And the thing is, they're going to work, because nobody's not going to do that. They are going to find a way to earn money in some way. They're not supposed to, but they're going to do it. So we have laws that just do not make sense. If you cross at a non-port entry, you are not here. Yes, you are. If you are granted an asylum case, you are fucking here legally. I don't understand why that is so hard for you to understand. If you cross illegally and then go into hiding, then yes, if they catch that person, they are going to kick them out. If you cross illegally, get charged with a misdemeanor, and put in a plea for asylum, if that goes through, now you may get denied that and kicked right the hell out. And based on the executive order that Biden did, there is a lot more discretion for them to do that. But if you get that date, you get that court case, they allow you to make your case for asylum. While you wait for that court case, you are here legally. You are a legal asylum seeker with a misdemeanor for crossing the border at an unauthorized checkpoint. Well, an unauthorized border crossing. I don't understand why you guys have a hard time with this. This kind of stuff really needs to be laid out for conservatives, because conservatives do not understand what they're talking about. Just like the deportation thing. All those people I saw coming in on the news 18 months ago, all those people are going to get removed. They can't be removed. They're not the targets of Trump's deportation plan. Those people came in as part of refugees and are seeking asylum. Many of them got kicked out. Others that ended up staying are here waiting for their asylum cases. If you want that sped up, you got to pay for the judges to hear their cases. And that was actually funded with the last border bill that Trump made sure did not go through. So court cases are still going to take too long. Those people, while they're waiting, are not targets for that level of deportation. The ones that are targets for that deportation are ones that have been here longer without correct paperwork. They've been here for years. They do not have a tourism visa. Obviously, it's not meant for that. And they don't have a valid work visa. And they are, if found, will be shit out of luck. So I hate to burst your bubble on that, Pine Creek, but that is a phenomenally ignorant thing to type out. And I'm proud of you that you can not here legally. As soon as they get their court date, they are here legally. Hey, PC, good to see you. Thanks for the reminder. All right, let's see. These people are missing part of their humanity. I think that's for me. Yeah, because I called Trump voters fascinated with fascism. But yeah. So anyway, that's that. I think that was the only one of interest to me. Doug's been putting out a lot of apologetic. A lot of Trump apologetics. Yeah. Well, I think I'm going to wrap it up there. I think I've been on for just about an hour, so I think I'll leave it at that. Let's see here. Brian says, if you want an example of Trump derangement syndrome, Trump got people who want a secure border to support him ending the border bill. Mitch McConnell even pointed out the bill was good, and Trump stopped it. Yeah. Well, and they massively screwed over, what was it, Landholtz or whatever, the Republican that wrote the bill. Like, I mean, it was a massive gimme to Republicans. But Trump's like, nope, if that goes through now, then I'm not going to have anything to complain about come when the October surprises start dropping, I guess. All right. Well, with that, folks, I'm going to get out of here. And oh God, are you trying to get pedantic about this? True or false? If you cross at a non-port of entry, you have committed a crime. Yes, that's true. I have already said that multiple times. Yes, it is true. If you cross at a non-authorized port of entry, you have committed a crime. Does that mean that those people, that everyone who has done that is that now? Therefore, does it follow that everyone who has done that thing, committed that crime, is here, and by definition, if they are here, they still remain here. They are here illegally. No, that does not follow. Because they could get prosecuted for the misdemeanor that they committed by crossing at a non-authorized port of entry, but get an asylum date, and they are waiting for that case, and they get to wait here. That's the law. I don't understand why you have a problem with this. If you cross at a non-port of entry, the default position is that you are not able to seek asylum. Since when? That is not the case. Where are you getting that from? They could do this during the Title 42. They could just, you know what, you crossed illegally, you don't get to declare asylum. They had the ability to do that under Title 42 during the pandemic. Title 42 isn't authorized anymore because we're not under a national emergency for a pandemic. So the only thing in effect now is the executive order that Biden put in that's based on the number of average crossings per week, and it gives the Border Patrol more options to do this. I think at this point, when it kicks over, when that trigger gets kicked, I think they can. Nope, you crossed illegally. You're not going to make your case for asylum. But without that in place, the standard law, the loophole was you could. And you're missing my point. If you get to that point and you get that date from a judge, you are here legally if you're an asylum seeker. So the thing that I would ask you, if you cross at a non-port of entry, the default position, you're not able to seek asylum. So everybody that crosses then so can you show me that everyone that crosses at a non-authorized point, 100% of them are being turned away? Getting it from the DHS. Okay. There's going to be a difference between their position on this and what international law dictates. As Pragmatic Crystals laying out, yes, it's legal to seek asylum in the U.S. regardless of how you entered the country. You can come in illegally and ask for asylum. Look up Court Order on Circumvention of Lawful Pathways Final Rule. Okay. Homeland Security. This is what I mentioned before, man. Final rule cut encounters at southwest border by over 55%. If they hit this trigger, yes, they can disregard their claims for asylum. But that's because the rule that's currently in effect is the president's executive order. The final rule is through the DHS DOJ. That's an interim final rule, and that is in cooperation with Biden's executive order. I mentioned this, not the DOJ DHS part, because that's just kind of administrative redundancy. But if that executive order is repealed, the basis of the law, they can seek asylum regardless of how they cross. This allows Border Patrol to disregard their asylum claims if encounters have gotten too high. If they're not triggered too high, it goes back to the other rule. Yes, certain individuals would under certain circumstances. True. But the claim that you made here was that if they crossed here, they're not legally here. That is incorrect. There are refugees that are currently here legally as legally recognized asylum seekers who crossed into U.S. borders illegally. That can happen. You cannot make the claim. Anyone who crossed illegally is automatically an illegal immigrant. No, they're not. Not under the law. Not necessarily. Did you know it's illegal to leave the U.S. With more than $5 of nickels? Is it? I'm going to Google that. Yeah, I mean, I'll take a look, a deeper look at this, but this was what I was mentioning before about the executive order that Biden put in place, which was very similar to the triggers that were built into the bill. They were there to kind of mirror the effect that Title 42 had when it was in place. Because under Title 42, if they crossed illegally, the Border Patrol did not have to accept any attempt to plead for asylum. They could just say, nope, you crossed illegally, you're going out. And that was in effect for damn near 3 years. Pine Creek, were you aware that it was in effect for the first 2 years of Joe Biden's presidency? Yes or no? Good old Doug distracting with minutia while the glaring issues get glossed over. Yeah, at the end of the day, the point that I was trying to make, any of this stuff, regardless of what happens here, those people are not getting deported. The promise of mass deportation is for people who they did not necessarily cross the border illegally. In fact, like I said before, the statistics show that something like it's the majority of people that are here with no real legal documentation are here tenuously, illegally. They stayed. They entered legally and then remained after their visa, whether it was tourist or a work visa, expired. So they're not in that boat. And many of those people are long-term residents of this country who are going to get kicked out. So if you can sit there and feel confident that like, well, this is going to make sure that none of those people that I see on Fox News or those people that are trying to jump through there or crawl underneath the razor wire, they're not going to be allowed to stay. That's not necessarily the case. Why do you think people cross other than a non-port of entry? Why do I? Because they're in a hurry. If you are, I mean, the one thing that you've got to understand, a lot of the people that were crossing illegally, in the last several months, these last few years, have been refugees coming out of Venezuela. One of the last big groups was out of Ecuador, Guatemala, and despite the fact that it's an international incident to have a bunch of different people from a lot of Southern and Central American countries trying to come to the United States, either seeking asylum or passage to another country or something like that. The Trump administration does not seem to mind parking them illegally in Mexico, where they also aren't citizens. I think it's kind of interesting that usually all the Border Patrol does is push them back into Mexico. That's been kind of the thing that I think that you've been mentioning. Have an entire border of guards that aren't afraid to push those people back. If those people cross over from Mexico to here, you don't send them back to Mexico. If you process them, you fly them home. And if home is currently a hotspot for international assassinations and murder, maybe you don't do that. Maybe you give them an opportunity to plead for asylum. So, like, why do you think people cross other than a non-port of entry? Your brilliant conclusion is, if they're willing to risk crossing at something other than a port of entry, which has a long wait time, it is because they know their asylum claim is bogus. That is you projecting onto them what you believe must be their motivations. It could be the case that you've got people doing that, but are they? How many people do you think? What percentage would you put on that, Pine Creek? Is it 90%? In a hurry. Yeah, it's a figure of speech, man. Why if you are on the run from your homeland and you're trying to get into the United States, or you're trying to get to Canada through the United States, and you can't afford like the boat or the plane, so you're going overland, and somebody tells you that what you need to do is spend months in Mexico, and you're not from Mexico, so you're not a citizen there. Mexico wants you gone too. So don't you think that would be a reason to want to cross as quickly as possible? Because Mexico doesn't have a great system for accepting asylum seekers either. People cross illegally because they know that there is a high probability of having their asylum case rejected. They have a high probability of their case being rejected if they cross legally too. So I don't understand what you're talking about. They're more at risk of being caught and kicked out if they cross illegally. They're more likely to be caught and they're more likely to be turned away. So if they're doing it, my guess is those people are probably extremely desperate. Like I don't see how, like, oh well, if they do that, they're getting over on us somehow. How? The vast majority of them are caught and either processed if they do get an asylum case, or they are kicked out. And the speed at which they can just be rejected immediately from the border crossing is entirely dependent on things like the current executive order or Title 42 when it was in place, thanks to COVID. So they are using asylum seeker as a magic word to stay in the US for a time. No. Depending on where they're from, if they're from like a failed state or something like that, that's usually what's probably going to get them their ability to claim that case. But what is it, like 26%? Only 26% of them get approved, regardless of how they crossed. Only 26 asylum cases actually get approved. The rest of them are deported. It's something like 73%, I think, get deported. 73, 72, 70, somewhere in there, So if you're, you roughly at, 3/4 are going back home, are being sent away. Only a quarter actually get through. The asylum seeking thing is not some magic word. It's whether or not the court determines their asylum claim has merit. And then they are an asylum seeker. The part where they're in limbo is when they're waiting for their date. But even in that limbo period, they are an asylum seeker. They are here legally. Doug must be really mad at Trump for killing the border. Strangely, he doesn't seem to be. But he practices that technique of being dead inside. So, yeah, he's fine. But it doesn't change the fact that the very first thing they did when they entered U.S. soil is to commit a crime. You're right, it doesn't. But again, you're talking about refugees, either political or natural disaster refugees. And the crime I believe that they're committing is a misdemeanor. If the United States does not have the capacity, we do have the capacity to not only process those claims quickly and to do something about the way basically to remove that entire thing. If the goal is to reduce the number of people that feel incentivized to attempt to cross at something other than a checkpoint, increase the number of checkpoints. Pay for more checkpoints, pay for faster processing systems. You can get these people's names, you can get them identified, bag them, tag them, figure out where they're trying to go, keep an eye on them. The idea that you're just going to build like a giant rubber bumper that they just keep bouncing off of so that they never get, that's just, silly. And I don't understand this. So if an individual coming from that country crosses into here, crosses our invisible line, and has committed a crime, it sounds like to me, Doug, that you believe that is unforgivable. They do not deserve a chance to stay here if they started out by crossing the border at an unauthorized checkpoint. but you do believe that Donald Trump deserves to be president for a second term, and he's committed crimes. He's actually been convicted of those crimes. So I'm trying to understand like what you're doing here. Like the people that get to pursue asylum to go to a judge's case, they get charged with the crime of crossing illegally. They are going to have to do something about that if they get approved. If they don't get approved, then well, the penalty for crossing illegally and the penalty for not having a denied asylum petition is deportation anyway. So it's the same. Yeah, that's true. The majority of asylum seekers are rejected. It's over 70%. It's kind of weird. I don't know why that. Let's drop that off. Yeah. To be granted asylum, one must meet the definition of a refugee. However, international law recognizes that the refugee status determination process can be lengthy and complex. Therefore, asylum seekers should receive certain protections before a state has officially recognized them as refugees. No immigrant has the right to be in this country. True or false? I think every immigrant everywhere has the right to request asylum anywhere. It's not about whether or not they have the right to be here. Do they have the right to request asylum if they're fleeing someplace that's screwed up? I think they do have that right. And not just in the US. I think they have the right to do that. I think we deserve that right. If something happened, God forbid, to the United States and it became a failed state, not hard to imagine, I would like to know that there are countries that would welcome us in as refugees where we could go there and they recognized our right to petition for asylum. Like with the EU or something, like, oh, well, we got too many people in Scotland, so we're going to start tucking them into Belgium. Like, whatever. I don't care, but no immigrant has the right to be in this country. That is a goofy question. I mean, depending on how you look at it, you don't have the right to be here, right? Your rights can be removed. So I'm not really sure how that's supposed to work. And immigrants that come over provisionally earn their right to stay, like you did. That work visas, whatever. So, I mean, it's technically true, I guess. You don't have the right to remain just because you decide that's where you just want to live here. We used to be able to do that in a lot of countries in the past, but for some strange reason, people have it in their head that super closed borders is a policy strength, and it's actually kind of stupid. Yeah, no. So yeah, I would turn that around a little bit. I don't think that they have any immigrant would not legally have the right to remain just because they chose to. Can they earn the right to stay here? I think they can. Do I believe in expanding the ways they can earn that right? Yep. And that doesn't have anything to do with asylum seekers. If you're talking about immigrants, that's category 1. If you're talking about refugees, that's category 2. And you, my friend, love blending the two together. Oh, he's accused somebody of feel sorry for ism. Doug is really digging here. Yeah, he really is. This is pretty sad. Just want to say I love Canada. Very nice people. I mean, yeah, Biden has deported more people than Trump did. Yes, he has. And Obama deported more people than any past presidents, all of the past presidents combined. Yeah, Daniel mentions that if they had passed that bill, they would have more judges to oversee those cases. Yeah. The ironic thing about it was that not only did it provide more funding for more judges to oversee the asylum cases, but it also gave them more discretion to reject those asylum cases. So if 70 to 75% are getting rejected now, it could have gone up to as high as 85, maybe even 90%. They had even more reasons to just sort of like look at them, just rule them out as being illegally recognized refugee. The first thing to do is to seal the border so only entry is port of entry. Reasonable. No, it's not. Why would that matter? If the border is not a point, you'd only do that. It would only be reasonable to do that if it was if you could show that it was somehow a reasonable concern beyond the level of security that we already have. We already have patrols and we already have surveillance. What do you mean by seal it? A wall's not going to change the need for patrols and for surveillance. So you'll still have people that get through or get over. Okay, I don't understand. I probably agree with no one deserves to be in the U.S. as an immigrant. It's a privilege, not a right. Right. But there's a difference between refugees and immigrants. When you're talking about asylum seekers, you are talking about refugees. Immigrants are people who, like you, did something like they came here for education. Maybe they came in as a job. They decided they wanted to stay longer and longer and longer, and then they became a citizen. Once they become a permanent resident and they're pretty much on their way, then they can stay, right? Or they can go that extra step beyond permanent resident and actually become a citizen. The idea that but the refugee thing isn't about like these people just want to come here. They saw something on TV and they decided that they're going to have all of Montana. That's not how it works. It's like, I mean, you might have somebody that's that addled trying to come across, but like, if you've got two different kinds of groups showing up, and the immigration issues and the refugee issues are connected, but they're separate. So when you say it's not a right for any immigrant to be here, correct? But do you think people have the right to ask another country for asylum in the event that their country goes to shit? Or do they just lump it? I should have brought up the video that he has a video about how a liberal is treated on an atheist show versus on his show. Yes, but not in our country. They seek asylum from outside our country. Maybe, but if the situation gets bad enough, Doug, if they're a refugee and they left? Let's say that Florida was another country. Do they wait for the administrative processing time while the storm's coming at them, or do they get the fuck out of there? It depends on the circumstances. Again, I'm not talking about immigration. I'm talking about asylum seekers. These people are leaving another country in an emergency. Storms, earthquakes, famine, war, total fucking societal collapse, that kind of stuff. Not the kind of stuff where you expect you're going to be able to just wait it out in your apartment or in your home. The Wi-Fi is going to work and you're going to be able to put all your paperwork through. No, the country has gone tits up. You need to bug out. Yes. So, do you think in those circumstances they have the right to ask for asylum from other countries? I think he answered it. Ask him if he believes the Haitians should be kicked out of Springfield. I think he said yes. The U.S. has no responsibility to keep the rest of the world alive. Harsh but true. That wasn't my question. Now who's dodging questions? My question was, do you as a person have the right to ask other countries for asylum if the country you're currently in goes to shit? And we're not talking about the responsibility of the country. Now, if you believe that people should have that right, some countries are going to say that's our responsibility to humans everywhere. If they're in trouble and they need a place to escape to, they can come here. That is not an acknowledgement that they get to go, that those refugees get to move there permanently. It is a request for asylum so that they can get out and resettle somewhere else. And in the case of that responsibility, the United States signed a law making it our responsibility that we would accept asylum claims from people. So if you don't believe that, you just have to go and fundamentally change that law. And maybe put in the language. It's not our fault who dies. You're on your own. Sink or swim. Social Darwinism rules. Fuckity bye. Current asylum law, Ewan, is that you go to the first country you come in contact with. Yeah, and I think many people do. Again, that wasn't my question. You are obsessed with the fact that this is somehow going to burden the United States. I'm asking you a simple question. Do you believe that humans have the right to request asylum from other countries? Even if it means they have to escape into that country physically to get out of the mess that is either barreling towards them or is already blown up. Doug, are you actually serious? Would you attempt to? Do you think any of the Haitian people that are in Springfield, Ohio, are going to get deported if Trump gets in? Okay, but what if the country? What if there are countries that decide that that is the right? So you have the right to ask for that, but no, every country can say no. Okay. So what do you think of a country that says, you know what? Not only do we believe that people have the right to ask for that, but as a country, as a responsible country, we should make it a right that we need to be willing to accept asylum claims to the best of our ability. Now, if there's overcrowding or other issues going on with that country, maybe taking them in could actually do more harm than good. Maybe. But for the most part, asylum is a complicated process. And the idea that you don't just decide, we're not going to recognize it because we don't like the way it looks on TV. That seems to be the reason, right? Like, that's the reason that you have a problem with refugees crossing the border at the southern border, is that it leads to more people working and paying taxes and not getting services. then those countries take them in. This is cool. We're getting like dug in like full grandpa mode here. So the country that you want is the really wealthy gated community that would not accept these claims, would not accept. You would pass laws that would restrict not only the country's ability to accept asylum seekers, but maybe even other people's ability to even, like, I mean, I know you want to, like, they cannot ask for asylum for after they've arrived for some reason. I don't know. I don't understand how that's supposed to work. But again, I'm hoping that you do understand, at least you've stayed kind of consistently on refugees, because refugees don't necessarily stay in the country they're seeking asylum in. You do know that, right? Like, this is not the same as immigration. But because I hear you putting stuff out, and I get the feeling that you think asylum claims are some kind of cheat to immigrate faster. You didn't ask that you wanted to come in. Let's see. How do I... There's that invite button on here. It's 7:08. I do have to leave kind of soon, so... But yeah, if you want to jump in for a few minutes, links down there.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah. I can't see you, though. All I can see is your screen.
Hang on. There we go. Oh, I should have asked sooner because I'm getting tired of typing, and everybody wants a piece of me in the chat. So I had to block the stupid ones so I wasn't distracted. Where to start? Oh yeah. Let's see. The CLP law.
Yeah.
So basically, that law says, and that it's not an old law. It's August 3rd, 2023. If you enter the United States other than a port of entry, you're presumed to be ineligible for asylum.
Right.
Now there are exceptions to that, of course.
Right. So that means that my point was that just because they crossed illegally does not mean that they remain illegally.
Well, okay,
and
yeah.
You made a statement that made it sound like it necessarily follows that if they crossed illegally, they're not here legally, and that is not the case.
Yeah, there is a problem of not semantics, but translation going on here. You would admit that they've committed a crime when they cross other than a port of entry. You've said
they did. It's a misdemeanor. Yeah.
Well, I don't think it's a misdemeanor. If it's punishable by 6 months in prison or deportation, that's not a misdemeanor.
The last time I checked, it was a misdemeanor. Maybe they've raised the penalty. I don't know.
I don't think you can go to jail for 6 months on a misdemeanor.
I think you can. It depends on the misdemeanor.
You might be right on that. But anyhow, so, and I
doubt you would, because that would be the maximum.
And I believe the courts have ruled that exactly what I just said, that if you cross illegally and then claim asylum, that the default position is no, your asylum seeking status is rejected. And again, there are exceptions, but the general rule, the vast majority, and you've even admitted this, it's over 70% of asylum cases are rejected. So what's happening
is, that's different. That's a different stage.
What's happening is that people want a better life, but it's not like they're going to die if they stay in their country. In the majority of the cases, of course, there's exceptions. They want a better life. They want US dollars to send back home. So they cross illegally, then claim asylum, and then get to work or hopefully work in the US for a few years. That's what's happening. And most of the United States citizenship are against that. Are you against that?
If that's parts of that, but the statistics that I've seen, that is not the majority of people that are here that are considered like, undocumented migrants. They did not come that way. They did not go through an asylum process. They came here legally and overstayed a visa, and they remain.
So
they are the vast majority of them.
So you think the vast majority of the millions of people who have come across the last 4 years have come through a port of entry?
Well, now we're talking about two different camps. It's really important to keep this distinction. A lot of the people that have been crossing in the last few years are refugees. They're coming from Venezuela. There was a big group that came out of Ecuador, etc. Those are not necessarily people who are doing the normal kind of what you would consider like a normal migration push. They came here as a tourist. They got a job. They overstayed. They came here on a work visa. The work visa expired. They stayed anyway. The vast majority of undocumented migrants now are from those groups. They didn't come over here as refugees. They weren't lugging their luggage with them across their back. They came. They could have overstayed.
So they did not come as refugees. The vast majority
of the again, what we're talking about, because the point of this was reasons to vote for Trump, and the reason that people are like, one of the things that he's saying is that he's going to deport all these people. The people that are targeted for deportation is that group of long-term undocumented migrants that have been here for years.
Okay, well, first of all,
that's not the same group as asylum seekers.
First of all, the polling I've seen, and maybe you've seen different polling, the polling I've seen is the majority of Americans support Trump's deportation.
But they don't understand it.
If only they understood, right?
Doug, I don't have a lot of assurance that you totally understand it, because you keep conflating refugees with immigrants.
Okay. Well, no, I'm not. But what do you think? What do you think people are not understanding about the deportation?
They don't understand the effect the effect it's going to have on the economy, because it's going to be expensive to do it, and you're going to be removing people who have actually been contributing, some kind of labor and productivity and money and taxes and stuff into the community. Also, the other side of that is they're going to end up watching on the news when somebody's husband or somebody's wife gets removed from their house and their kids and is sent back to their country with a mandate that they can't come back for 25 years or maybe never.
Maybe the American people do understand that and are okay with that, and they just are so different than you are.
If they understood that, then when J.D. Vance comes by and seconds it and says, actually, this is our housing policy because this is going to free up, how is it going to do that? If you've got a man and a woman living together, and one is an American citizen and one of them is an undocumented migrant, when the undocumented migrant gets removed, the house still stays in possession of that woman, unless it just gets foreclosed on. So I'm sure there's, because she doesn't have another income coming in, that it's not going to open up housing. They're promising that. So they're basing a lot of their stuff on implied misunderstandings of how this is going to benefit people. It's going to free up space. We don't have these unwelcome people here taking up, stealing jobs and stealing homes. Like, that's not going to work that way. It's not going to have that effect at all. So no, the vast majority of people, there are people that do not understand the migration issue that are actively voting against Trump. There are plenty of Democrats that do not understand that, even if we're having a conversation about like the people that cross the border, a lot of people do think, right and left, that those are migrants. Like they're migrants in the sense that, they're refugees, sure, but they're not the kind of immigrants that Trump is talking about deporting. He wants people to make the assumption that Trump's going to get rid of all the scary people that came over. That's not who they're going to be able to go after, because if those people that crossed over did not get kicked out, if they're standing around waiting with an asylum case pending, they're not getting deported.
Unless they're a criminal and they've been caught.
That would have gotten screened out and they wouldn't have gotten the case. They wouldn't get the court date.
No, sorry.
Unless if they committed a crime while they were waiting for an asylum, then they would get deported. Yes.
Right. That's who I'm talking about. People who are in the country committing crimes.
How many asylum seekers actively waiting for their court date to plead their case are committing crimes? Do you
I
have
don't
any
know.
statistics on that?
No, I don't. But
What
wouldn't
do,
that be?
what do we?
You support that, though? I'm assuming to deport criminals, right?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
but I don't.
And
I don't think that's an issue.
okay, do you support? So you don't think that's an issue?
I have not heard even from right-wing circles where they've talked about if they understood this, they came in, they got screened, maybe they crossed illegally, maybe they didn't. They're pleading for asylum. They get their court date, they get their bus ticket, they go to Chicago, Boston, whatever. They're waiting for their court date. They got to wait 6 months to a year, whatever. In that amount of time, they're working in restaurants, whatever they're doing to survive and keep afloat. In that amount of time,
some of them.
What percentage? I'll ask you.
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
But is
So-
it unreasonable to think that at least 1 out of 10 million people would steal to survive?
No.
Is that unreasonable? Okay.
That's why I don't think that there's a separate law that says they have to apply to get permission to work. If they come in here, I think that they should either that should be done. If they get the ability to get a court case, and we know administratively it's going to take them at least 6 months, they also get approval to work. So companies can hire them. That would greatly reduce any incentive they have to break the law.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you. Working is way better than stealing. Do you think that there should be checks to just make sure that the job that the immigrant's taking, American doesn't want it?
How would you do that? How would you even administer that?
Well, by, let's say, having a system where if like that I had to go through when I was on my work visa, there was a period of time where there was a call for U.S. citizens to take the job that I was being offered, and if it wasn't fulfilled, then I could have it.
Well, yeah, they would probably do that anyway. You're talking about basically like what do they call it? Hiring priorities.
Yeah,
they have a priority to hire an American
citizen. So you're agreed with me that U.S. citizens should have a priority for work over an immigrant.
I would probably leave that to the states.
I'm asking your personal opinion.
No, I mean I would be probably okay with.
There's a job available, and two people want it. One's a U.S. citizen, one's an immigrant. Do you have a preference who should get it?
No.
They'd be equally qualified.
If they're equally qualified, no.
No.
It should be up to the business. It would be up to the business, right?
Now, I'm not saying this, but a lot of Americans would consider you radical.
In the sense that I'm pro-business?
No, in the sense that you would put a foreign national above a U.S. citizen.
I'm not. I'm not. No, because I'm not. I'm not saying that person should be hired instead of the American. I'm saying I don't have a preference. It's up to the company.
Okay.
How is that me putting my thumb on the scale?
Listen to my question very carefully.
I did. Doug, listen to me. I'm not, and please listen to my answer carefully. I am not saying, what you seem to be saying is that by not providing a preference to the American, I am somehow by default providing a preference or an advantage to the immigrant that's coming in. But I'm not. I'd be like, no, I don't care. Why does it jump? If they're equally,
the question is forcing
the employer should be able to.
The question is forcing you to have a preference. So if there's a gun to your head, and you're going to die unless you can't say no preference. You have to choose one. There's a job, and it's available, and there's two people who want it. An American citizen.
Given that the person threatening me with a weapon is probably somebody that agrees with you, I guess I'm going to pick the American because I think that there's a wrong choice, and I'm going to get shot anyway.
So you need a gun to your head to say the word American.
No, I would need a gun in the head to weigh in on that decision instead of the employer. Doug, do you not understand the exercise you just gave me?
Of course I understand the exercise I just gave you.
Then when I'm saying I wouldn't take that decision away from the employer, you're saying that I have to for the good of the country, and I better get it right because there's a gun to my head.
Okay, so you do prefer for jobs, you do prefer American citizens get first dibs over foreign nationals.
I think
right?
generally maybe, but at the same time, like
Maybe.
the way that you had presented your case, you have two candidates, an American citizen and an immigrant. Both of
Why
them
did you say
equal,
maybe instead of yes?
because the maybe is predicated on the fact that I'm not entirely comfortable with the state saying, here's what we're going to do. And I thought you were pro-business. I'm going to force companies, private businesses, to
Yeah.
hire Americans above migrant applicants, even if the company would rather hire the migrant. Maybe the migrant's even better qualified,
Yeah.
but they
Okay.
got to
Hey,
give it to the American.
we're not disagreed there. Like if let's say there's a job
So
available
you would
and
disagree with that?
no, I said I don't disagree because what you added in there, remember when I gave you the hypothetical, I said they're the same in qualification, but now you're adding one's more qualified. Yeah, and that's what happened in my case. I was way more qualified than the Americans, and so I got the job. And so
Okay.
yeah, I agree with you there. But if there's a situation where an American is as qualified, if not more, then you would definitely go with the American, right?
Now, are you asking me as somebody making this decision on behalf of businesses, a
No, no,
policy, or me
I'm
hiring
asking.
somebody?
Yeah, you hiring somebody.
I would base it entirely on which one I thought could do the job. I would not have a preference either way. No.
Okay, but if they both can do the job, would you have a preference?
No.
No,
I would not. No.
You're contradicting yourself. At first you said
The only preference I have is the one I think is the most qualified for the position. That's
right.
it.
They're both equally qualified. One's an American, one's a foreign national. Who do you choose?
I don't know.
You don't know.
I'm not going to pick somebody just
This is
based
why
on
this is why people are shifting to
Doug,
the right, because
what
people
the
like
fuck are you talking about? Why would I pick somebody just because? Okay, they're equally qualified. The only difference is their nationality. You want me to admit that if I have to pick between these two people who are basically clones, except that one is a citizen and the other is a visitor, I should be if I'm a good person, I'll pick the citizen over the visitor.
Right. If you're a good American, you would choose Americans first. That's what I'm saying.
No, that's just you're just being a nationalist. I'm
Yes,
not a
what's
nationalist.
wrong? What is wrong with that?
It's dehumanizing. It's ignorant.
Icky
It's
to you.
reactionary.
It's icky to you.
It's identity politics, man. I thought you guys were against identity politics.
I am for identity.
Really? So
Yeah. Identity is what gives people stability. Like if a person doesn't have identity,
perfect.
They go crazy.
Perfect. The traditional family.
You've seen the crazy.
The role, yeah, the roles, yeah, but only some identities need apply, right? The other identities.
Are you proud to be an American?
No.
Why?
Why would I be? I was born here. I didn't do anything to become an American.
I like that answer. I love that answer. So
I wouldn't be any different if I was born in England. I would be like, yeah.
Do you think I should be proud to be an American?
Maybe a little, because you had to,
Yeah, because I had to do something. I'm way more American than a lot of these flag waving phonies in here who were just born here, right?
Not to the people that take identity a little bit more seriously than you, and a lot more seriously than me.
You'll never be a
real American.
You'll be a nationalist.
Yeah, but you're compensating because some of the nationalist buddies that you run around will never accept you as a real American. You weren't born here.
Oh, they would accept me before you. You just admitted you don't like America.
No, I said I wasn't. I didn't say I didn't like America.
You're not proud to be an American.
I don't have any real pride of being an American. No.
Yeah.
I don't mourn it. I'm not down on being American. I'm just not proud of it.
I appreciate your honesty on that.
I've never understood nationalism or jingoism. I think they're weird.
I'm proud to be an American. I think America's a great place.
Probably to a fault. Pragmatic Crystal put in a link. The dangers of teaching American exceptionalism. It's great at certain things, but other things it is not good at.
What is America great at?
What are we great at? Biscuits and gravy. It's pretty good. I used to think like in some of our food, we were pretty good, like some quintessentially American food, fried chicken, barbecue. And then I went to Asia and they were better at all of that stuff than us. So it's not our food.
Don't you think America's great because we take in so many immigrants?
Yeah, kind of, but our immigration system is capricious and stupid.
Like
I
the
think we kind of
Olympics,
lost some of that.
like the Olympics just happened, and if you look at the Olympic teams, like gymnastics or whatever, and you look at the American team, you notice the diversity in skin shades and well, yeah, and skin shades. But you look at the Chinese team, you don't see like a diversity in skin shade, and skin shade's important, right?
You see this. You see the same breakdown in diversity on the Dutch team.
Yeah, the Dutch are way better than the Chinese
At what?
at skin shades.
Why would you think I'm concerned with that?
I'm not.
Why
I'm
did you
just
bring that up?
Is diversity in skin shades good or bad?
They're neither.
What?
Skin
Don't tell me
shades-
you're one of these colorblind people.
No, I don't. Are you going to ask me if I'm proud to be white next? Is that coming? Because I'm not.
Sorry,
That's not a thing I'm for or against either. Like, no, it does not occur to me to really.
Maybe we should get back to
that.
immigration because we're kind of like I'm having too much fun. But let's see where we agree and disagree. I think it's better that immigrants come in an orderly fashion rather than a disorderly fashion. Do you agree with that?
We agree.
Okay, good.
But I don't believe that you need to seal the border or militarize it further. I think militarizing it leads to the disorder that we're seeing now.
Okay. Do you think that the way I came into this country, I've been background checked many times by the FBI, CIA, whoever did it, fingerprinted. I've been vaccinated twice, which, I don't blame the Americans for making me do that. I've been asked to, before I entered, like I would go home to visit my family in Canada. When I entered through North Dakota, I was asked to show bank statements that I had enough money to support myself. Do you think that's a better way of doing things than just letting someone come across, claim asylum, and you don't know who they are really, where they're from, if they're criminals or sick?
No, I don't think either one of those systems works well.
You don't think it works well with me?
The idea of asking somebody who would already have been as established as you here and asking you to prove, like, especially like, let's say that you now, were you asked to show statements of your financial situation because you were here on an educational visa?
Yeah, initially, yeah, but I think
that's usually when they would do it. Yeah,
but isn't that good?
Yeah, I think generally. I mean, Australia and New Zealand are extremely strict about that. I think most countries do that, but I don't think that the majority of people don't go to college, and even of the minority of people that do go to higher education, and even smaller minority pursue that education in another country.
But the Department of Homeland Security even looked into my parents. Do you think that's good?
I mean, do I think it's good?
Yeah, that they did their due diligence on me so much that they actually went into my family's history.
I think it's a little nosy, but it's thorough.
Yeah, is thorough good in this case?
To make sure that you're not a Canadian terrorist, maybe.
Yeah, okay. So given that thorough is maybe good, then not doing that is maybe bad, right?
Well, I want to ask you.
Can you answer that question? If not doing the things that they did with me, being thorough, if that's maybe good,
why are you
then
presenting
not doing those things is maybe bad, right?
Not necessarily. Doing fewer of those things may have been just as good. You know what I mean?
In other words, we know that there's bad people in the world, and let's say it's only 1%. Don't we want to identify who those bad people are?
Yeah. I mean, we can usually with like criminal background checks. You're voting for a guy that makes it really easy.
Okay. So
he's got 34 felonies. He's an adjudicated rapist. I mean, you can identify that guy as a bad guy. You're going to vote for him, right?
So given that we both have that desire.
You do not have that desire. You only have that desire for poor people. If they're rich, you let them off without even offering an excuse. Donald Trump should not be in the Republican Party, right?
Well, maybe I was poor.
Hang on, don't get distracted. You're talking about like the importance of identifying bad people. As a bad person, you've said in the chats that a bad person would be somebody who came here, it crossed into the country illegally, even if what they're trying to do is flee a bad country and they're claiming asylum. That's one crime. Donald Trump has been convicted of 34 felonies and has been found civilly liable for
Right. Okay.
defamation and
Very
sexual
good.
assault.
Very good, Jefferson.
So
Very good.
why don't you hold him to the same? If
So
that, you should
Jefferson,
not be able to vote for him.
right. If Donald Trump was convicted of 34 felonies or whatever, but he happened to be Brazilian, do you think he should just be able to cross the border at a non-port of entry?
No, he should be gone. But I already told you that I agree
But
with
how?
deportation.
Hang on. What if he claimed asylum?
That'd be different. He's coming in as a refugee, right?
Okay. So you're okay with Donald Trump, 34 felonies, crossing at a non-port of entry and claiming asylum and then staying in this country?
For how long? Again, you're conflating immigration
Until his asylum case.
with you're conflating an immigrant, like standard immigration,
So much fun
with a
I'm using
refugee.
Donald Trump against you.
Not in the way that you think. If he like, let's say he has this history, yes. If he was coming from Mexico and Mexico was on fire and he had to cross into the country and then ask for asylum because the devastation is so great, he's not going to be able to live there for a while. So he needs to be able to stay here temporarily. Yes, I would approve his ability.
That hasn't been
to ask
that
for
hasn't
asylum.
been, but that happens at the adjudication court date, right? These facts.
They come out, yes. But
Okay,
he gets
so
to,
imagine
he gets
Donald
to
Trump.
ask. Wait, he gets to come here because of the unmitigated disaster he just fled.
But we don't know that's true until we actually adjudicate it.
Let me make this really obvious. Let's say Mexico is getting hit with a hurricane the size of Milton.
Okay.
Right? And it's going to wipe out a massive slash of the place. Where he lives, he is not going to be able to rebuild anytime soon, right? The devastation's massive. International aid is going to have to be brought in. Mexico is a basket case. He leaves there to survive, crosses here illegally, begs for an asylum hearing, gets his court date or whatever, and then has to wait. I would approve that. Yes.
Okay. Very good.
Okay.
So you would let Trump 34 felonies cross in the United States illegally, say the magic words asylum seeker, which are not magic words because actually his home in Brazil or wherever was actually Mexico was under duress.
Under certain circumstances, yes, I would support his claim to ask for
and
asylum.
You know that
yes.
that his country's under duress because of what you see in the news or something?
A hurricane the size of Milton that was about to wipe off, let's say, a third of Mexico. Yeah, that was that'd probably be on the news.
Hurricane lasts a couple of days in a certain area. Why couldn't he just go somewhere else where in Brazil and evacuate?
He's in Mexico.
I'm sorry,
he's in Mexico.
He evacuates that area that's being struck by the hurricane and goes to a different part of Mexico and then goes back home. Why would you let this felon into our country when he could have just evacuated within his own country?
Because I'm allowing him to ask for asylum.
No, you said he could come in.
If it's an emergency, yes.
Why are you allowing the felon Trump come into our country?
Because he's coming in, he's fleeing one emergency area and coming in here to survive. But
he could flee into another part of Mexico.
Okay, but if according to my example, if a third of Mexico is going to get blasted by a series of storms and a massive hurricane,
he could go to the other 2/3.
And how
you see what I'm doing? I'm getting you to defend Trump.
Do you understand this is like a cartoon. If the storm goes through, do you think the rest of Mexico is just fine? The 2/3 that's not directly hit by the hurricane has working, infrastructure. It's okay. It's just been like, oh yeah, the rest of the country's fucked up.
The whole country is ruined now.
Would he just skip down and go to Guatemala?
So maybe we should let every Mexican in, not just Trump, the felon.
If there was a situation like that, we would allow them in, man.
You see, Jefferson, the absolute ridiculousness of your position.
You would let those people die in a storm rather than come in.
You're talking about all of Mexico now, right?
I'm talking about the people in an affected storm.
I just told you they could evacuate to the other parts of Mexico that are not affected by the storm. And then you said, no, the whole country, isn't the whole country going to be affected?
It is. You're going to get the first initial wave of migrants, of refugees.
So are you saying that all Mexico should be allowed into the United States now?
If for their safety, if they want to ask, they should be able to. Yeah.
But I said allowed in.
What are the circumstances that we are talking about? An unprecedented catastrophe. So we've already settled the situation. Would I allow someone in with a criminal background under those circumstances? Yes, I would. If they crossed illegally, they would probably end up facing the same misdemeanor charge that anyone else would. But would they be able to make a claim for asylum? I would say yes, because the country that they just came from is going to get wiped out in a storm. A big natural disaster is coming. So I don't understand why that's controversial. You seem to be very excited about allowing a lot of people to die, though. So I think that your thought experiment has failed, because you would not allow them to cross. You would make them get on their phones, assuming those work, because there's pre-storms coming and other problems happening. They all have to get on a system and trust that American administrators can get them all approved before they cross the border, right? They have to do that before they're allowed to save their lives. They have to ask us first, and then they can come in. And if we don't get to them, they just drown. You aren't even listening to me, are you?
No, I was listening.
It just seemed like you completely spaced out. Would you just let them all die?
The United States cannot save everybody.
I'm not asking them to save everybody. We're asking them to take in people fleeing a storm from Mexico. That's not everybody. That's just people that are trying to flee a storm.
Jefferson, if you can't save everybody and there's a mass hurricane that you said would affect the whole country, that's the same thing as saying letting people die.
What?
If you can't save everybody, that's the same thing as saying you're letting people die.
No, but what you're saying, what you seem to be saying, is that because you can't save everybody, why go through any trouble to save anybody? And that doesn't make sense to me.
No.
Why wouldn't you allow as many people as possible to cross over until the storm goes? They're not going to stay permanently. You do understand that in the thought experiment, right? The refugees don't stay and become American citizens automatically. They go back.
Under your system, you let them in the country, though.
Yes, because they're fleeing a natural disaster, and if they don't get the fuck out of there, they're going to die.
Okay. So
you wouldn't, and what I was asking, you wouldn't do that. That's not a consideration for you.
Do you think the situation that this hypothetical that we are talking about right now, do you think that applies to the vast majority of people, the millions of people who have come across the last 4 years? That it's obvious like a hurricane?
No. And I did. Okay. I never made the claim that it did.
Good. So
hang on. The reason that we got into those circumstances was because you asked me about Trump and his 34 felonies.
Right. You would let Trump in as a felon because if he was facing those, you want Trump to live. I understand. I got it.
If he was in those circumstances and his death is imminent, and we can provide him some kind of safety while the storm rides out, right, you can come here and try to claim asylum.
You would, yes, you're willing to let Trump live if that means he's going to die in his home country. You want Trump as a felon in this country and a rapist. You want rapists in this country because you don't want him to die. I get it.
But he would get deported, right?
Oh, I see. So once the hurricane subsides, then you deport him.
He gets deported. Yeah.
Okay. Because there's no safe place within Mexico to go to. I got it.
No. Even if you grant somebody asylum, that does not mean you can't revoke it, man. You do get that, right?
Yeah.
You can revoke it.
Sure. Yeah. You let criminals into the country and then you do all the hard work of finding them and capturing them and then deporting them. I get it.
That's what Trump's campaigning on that right now, man. You're going to vote for the guy that's planning to do exactly that.
Of letting people in and then deporting them, or deporting the people that the Biden let in?
Harris and Biden didn't let all those people that he's targeting for deportation have been here for at least a decade. They are long-term undocumented migrants.
Oh, there's no criminals that have come in the last 4 years?
There could be, but that's not.
Oh. Okay.
And that's a misleading question. You already said, because if they're undocumented, they've already committed at least one crime. So all of them technically are criminals.
Right, but
right?
let's say the criminals that have been caught in doing crime in this country.
Yeah, aren't they normally deported?
Yeah, so that's where we should
Okay.
start with the deportation process, and I think the Biden
That's
Harris.
that's not the deportation process that Trump is running on, man. He's talking about going after the people
Didn't
that
you
would
watch
have
the
been
debate with the vice VP debate?
Yes.
Yeah, and JD Vance very eloquently said, he was asked the question, what does this look like, the deportation? He said we start with criminals, and
Right.
then I think the second is start with people who are taking in social assistance like welfare, and
But
then you go
but you
down the
do
list.
you do understand that for Vance, though, they're all criminals.
Yes,
So that does not mitigate that
but
does not.
some criminals are caught and some are not. So he was saying that you deport the people who've been caught already and are sitting in jail right now. Like that's easy peasy, right?
Well, that's probably going to happen to them anyway. What they're talking about actually doing is any of the people that would have been positively affected by a Dreamers Act, those people are getting deported. That's the plan.
Someone just accused me of being divorced. No, I'm not divorced. I've been married happily for 31 years. Anyhow, yeah, where do we go from here? We're so different. We're so different. I mean, I think the difference is, well, which we already talked about, is you're not a nationalist at all, right? Like, is there any bone in your body that's nationalist? I don't think so.
Maybe a little bit. I mean,
so that's a major difference between you and I.
Were you proud? Are you a proud Canadian as well?
Not as proud as me being American. If America and Canada ever went into war, I'd fight for the Americans, even though I'm old.
I would leave.
You would leave instead of fight?
Well, I would probably fight on the Canadian side. If Canada and the United States got into a if Canada and the United States broke down so badly that they ended up going to war against each other, 9 times out of 10, that's the U.S.'s fault.
Let me get this straight. You just said if Canada and the United States went to war, you'd fight for the Canadians? Doesn't that make you a traitor?
If the U.S. was the aggressor, yes.
I'm shocked you'd even say that on a live stream.
Why? I have the right to free speech, right? I mean,
well, yeah, you do, but
this
is not a wise thing to say publicly.
It's a hypothetical, right?
No, it's not.
Yes, it was. If the United States goes to war with Canada, and if the United States is the aggressor, I would probably find myself fighting for the Canadians.
Okay, you're right. It's a hypothetical.
A lot of things got to click into place first. Like, calm down, man.
I'm amazed at your balls that you would actually say, and that even within a hypothetical, that you would be a traitor and leave.
I'll remember that you said this part the next time you accuse me of dodging one of your hypothetical thought experiments.
No. I respect you. I respect you for saying it. I just surprised you would admit it publicly. Because within the hypothetical, you basically admitted to being a traitor within the hypothetical.
Right, but if the country betrays me,
right.
If the United States engaged in some war on aggression with Canada, I would probably be a little justified in going the freedom fighter routine and fighting for the other side. Before I get scarfed, before I speak out against the aggression, get scarfed up and disappeared in some, Christian nationalist gulag or something.
And I appreciate that you are not the type of person who's against hypotheticals. I just had a conversation with a guy, my cousin actually, was against hypotheticals when it goes against this way. But a hypothetical question, 2 people at the border. I've asked you this, I think, before, but maybe I haven't. 2 people at the border. You're in charge of who gets in of the 2. One's poor and one's rich. Who do you let in? Everything else is equal. Skills, ability. The poor one.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think allowing poor people into the country helps the country more, or allowing a rich person into the country helps the country more?
Both actually would help the country.
You can only choose one.
Right. But I don't know to what degree that one was going to be more helpful than the other. They both do.
Okay, let's put
The
this way.
reason,
Who will pay more
hang on.
taxes?
Well, initially, maybe the wealthy person.
Okay, is paying taxes a good thing or bad thing
Mm,
for the country?
For the country, well, it depends on how the economic system's run.
What?
But I mean, the
The
revenue
way
is
the way the country's run currently, isn't paying more tax than no tax good?
collecting more taxes for revenue to use. I mean, it can
Yeah,
be. I mean,
because that
yeah,
can help the poor, right? Yeah. Okay.
potentially.
So we got a rich man, let's say, not a billionaire, because I know you really hate billionaires, but let's say, worth $10 million or something like that. And then a person is just the clothes on his back, but they both have the exact skill set. They're both no crime. Everything else is equal. Just one
Right.
has lots of money and one doesn't.
Yeah.
Who do you let in?
For national security purposes, the poor.
What? Explain.
Because the one with millions of dollars can get up to a lot more trouble. And I don't know. The only thing I know about these two guys is that they're both equal, right? But I don't know
if they're both
why
equal, then they're equal in their propensity to do crime.
No, they're not. One of them has $10 million and a lot more capacity.
See, this
to get
is your
stuff done.
bias against rich people right there. You think
not.
in your head that if you have
No.
more money, you're more likely to be evil.
No. That person
Okay.
has the capacity to do more harm because they have more money if they decide to go bad.
Okay.
If the poor person decides to go bad, they don't have a lot of resources. They're probably not going to do much damage and they're going to get caught.
Okay, I understand your reasoning, but does the rich person also have more capacity to do good with their money? Because the poor guy doesn't have any money.
I mean, yeah, I mean temporarily.
Yeah. You didn't say temporary with when you looked at the evil part of it. See, this shows your bias. You are so against rich people that you just see they can only do negative things with their money, not positive.
Doug, I told you I wanted both in there for the purposes of your particular.
You can't have both. You got to choose one in this hypothetical.
Right. But I know that. But you can't because you've put that parameter on me, you can't say, aha, your bias is you hate the rich. No, the only two unequal things about these two people is the amount of money that they have on them at the moment that they're coming in. One of them has millions of dollars. So if you don't know anything about these people other than a basic background check, no crime, whatever, you do have to ask yourself, okay, the person here with like $50 in his pocket is coming in here and is looking for work. All right, we know where he's going to go. He's going to work for 50, 60 hours a week. The guy with $10 million, what's he doing?
Okay, see, we don't know in either case, right? We don't know that this poor guy is going to go and get a job and work 50 hours a week. And we don't know that the rich guy might not actually create a job a business that will create jobs.
But you're not basing it.
People like
but
him.
You're not hoping for the best. You're not hoping for the best. You're planning you want to plan for the worst. And of these two candidates, the one that can get into the most trouble and cause the most problems for you is the one that is showing up with $10 million and a desire to live closer to Disney World or something. Meanwhile, the guy that just has $50 and is coming here to work is a pretty known commodity. He does not have the ability to start throwing his money around or change anything for good or for bad. And what you're trying to do, right, is make the best out of what could potentially become bad. The potential for damage is higher with the wealthy person than it is with the poor person. So you let the poor person in.
Okay, so you let the poor person in because you got a plan for the worst, and the rich guy is more likely
could go worse.
Could go worse. Okay. Is just as a baseline here, is being dependent on welfare, is that a good thing or bad thing to you? Being dependent on welfare, is that a good thing or bad thing?
Why are we talking about this? We're supposed to be talking about reasons to vote for Trump, but generally,
I'm going to trap you here, and I'm letting you know ahead of time, and I'm asking you to freely walk into it to test if your reasoning is sound. So, and this has to do with the rich and the poor hypothetical. Because if you say that being dependent on welfare is a bad thing, then wouldn't you say, and I don't know if you would say it's a bad thing because you haven't answered the question yet, but if you were to say
I would say that it's
not
it depends, right? It's not bad to be dependent on welfare, but it depends on.
It's not bad to be dependent on welfare.
No, but there's nothing else going on in that statement, right?
would you personally rather be independent financially or dependent on welfare? You personally?
I am dependent on my wages, so it's kind
That's
of
not the
same.
question.
I think I would rather be independently wealthy, because usually if
you.
you're in an administrative system, you have to jump through hoops and stuff. They will keep you constrained.
So if it's better for you to be independently wealthy, or let's say not dependent on welfare, why wouldn't it be better for other people to be independent rather than dependent and on welfare?
It wouldn't necessarily.
Okay. So now we have those two guys at the border.
Right.
One guy has 10 million, one has $50.
Yeah.
Out of those two people, who is more likely to be dependent on welfare in the future? We don't know for sure, but who's more likely to be?
I mean, just out of the wealth, probably the poor one.
Poor one, which
Right.
you yourself don't want for yourself, right?
I don't prefer it.
Right. So
But
wouldn't that be a reason to choose the rich guy?
no.
No?
What are the odds that, because here's the thing, there's a lot of components missing to your thought experiment. Is it bad for a person to ever be on welfare for any amount of time?
No. But
Okay.
That's not what I asked you.
The original question that you asked was a value question. Is it bad to be dependent? Is it good or bad to be dependent on welfare? How long? That's why I'm asking you that question. Even if you're on unemployment insurance, you are on social insurance for a temporary amount of time, you are dependent on welfare. So it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
If you're talking about somebody who's just stuck on welfare,
I understand what you're getting at.
Okay.
And-
All right.
and
That's why there's a difference in that value statement.
And also there's a perspective of, like, if someone's in need and needs help, yeah, then welfare can help them and that's good for them. But in terms of good for the country, I think the country would prefer that no one's dependent on welfare, right? You agree with that? Like if I was a magician, I could snap my fingers and make everybody who's dependent and on welfare just be financially independent. I think everybody in this live stream chat and yourself would say, yeah, click your fingers. That's a good thing, right?
Yes, I think that would. Yeah, if you could make everybody financially independent, yes, that would be
okay. So if we had to choose in this scenario to let in poor people or rich people,
that's not the choice. Hang on, I got to read this. Thank you, William, for the super chat. Notice how Doug shifts the topic the moment that it's brought up. What about crime guy is voting for a criminal?
No, I didn't shift it. I used it to my advantage, and I used Trump as an immigrant to coming in this country.
You tried to do that to present an issue where I would still allow the criminal in.
Right. So you would let Trump, a rapist, into this country?
Only if his life were in danger. We already talked about this.
I know, we already talked about this. So let's move on.
It went nowhere. No, the scenario that you're giving me now and you gave before.
You're in the habit of letting rapists into the country there, Jefferson?
You do know, it's a fallacy to do that, right? I'm just going to keep putting words into your mouth until it's over.
I mean,
this is why no one likes conservatives, because anyone who would pun like this, is basically a psycho.
If there's, I mean, it's just fascinating to me that you're biased against the wealthy.
But I'm not biased against the wealthy guy in that. I'm not biased because of him and that he's a wealthy guy. The scenario.
Yeah, you said if he has $10 million, he can do more evil.
I'm in a scenario where I'm supposed to let in one of these two guys, and I only get to pick one. And my goal as the person guarding the border is to make sure that I'm letting in the person that's the least security risk, right? That's what we want to do. We want to make sure that we're not letting in a criminal. The only thing that I know about these guys that is in any way different, that I know that they won't commit crimes. Was that how you controlled for it? Yeah, I can predict. I said so I can predict the future.
No.
Include, but they're not. But the thing is, yes, they're equal in the sense that they both have the capacity to do good and they both have the capacity to do bad. You keep trying to tell me about how much more good the wealthy guy will do or could do.
No.
But that is exactly what you've been doing. Now, if I'm looking at the situation from a glass half empty thing, if one of these guys decides to go nuts, they both have, right? And according to your hypothetical, these guys are equal. So I'm going to say they could be equally
Okay,
good
I can show you
and equally
bias
bad.
in a different way. I know in this hypothetical, I know the future, and neither one of them will commit any type of crime.
Then it doesn't matter who you let in.
Okay, guns to your head, you have to choose one. Are you going to choose the wealthy one or the poor one?
Gun to my head. Oh, I think you want the $10 million, so I got to pick that one or you'll pull the trigger. These are not good hypotheticals.
Jefferson.
There's no point to choose now. You broke the hypothetical.
No,
there's no security.
I've controlled for everything but one thing, and that is wealth.
That I could know that you can accurately predict the future. You know for a fact that neither one of these guys will ever commit a crime. Both of them are equally safe. There's no reason to even worry about the choice. You could literally flip a coin. It doesn't matter.
No other reason other than crime?
You just want this. How do you know that the rich guy is going to do anything really beneficial with the money as opposed to the poor guy? How do you control for that?
I can even control for that.
So you already know. So I'm an oracle sitting at the border, and I know that the wealthy guy coming here not only is never going to commit a crime, but throughout his life, he's going to make so much damn money for this country that I would be stupid not to let him in. If those were my powers, I would absolutely pick the wealthy guy. You're absolutely correct. But that hypothetical depends on me having superpowers. So it's ridiculous. It doesn't work. You broke it.
I want to try something. I've never tried this before. The same hypothetical, but let's get rid of the $10 million man. Two poor people. One has $100. One has 10. And you're forced to only let one in. Who do you let in?
You pick one randomly.
You just do it randomly?
They're exactly the same, except one has $10 and one has 100. This is exactly what I would have done if I'd known that if the only thing I knew was that
okay. So when it's 110,
toss a coin. What went in?
Okay, so you would toss a coin. So when it's 110, you would toss a coin. There's no difference. But when it's 10 million to 50, then you have reason to choose the poor one. You wouldn't flip a coin there.
In the original hypothetical where I don't know if one of them is a risk or not, I said I would pick the poor person because if they become a risk, they can do less damage.
We've controlled for criminality.
But that was when I said that, Doug. When you said
that you now again,
I said it was a coin flip with him too, and then you said you could know the future.
You said, okay, I didn't hear you say it was a coin flip with them too. So you'd flip a coin between the $10 million man and the $50 man because
it makes no
control
difference.
For crime.
Yes, because it makes no difference
because you're risk adverse and you want to plan for the worst.
Well, in that case, you don't even have to be risk averse.
Right. I mean, if you didn't control for the criminal,
if you didn't control for it, then yes. My thing is for the risk averse, the person with $50 or no bucks versus the person with $10 million cannot do the same amount of damage as a person with $10 million. That's just
okay.
Right?
Yeah, I think I understand you.
The $10 million person has the capacity to do a lot more harm with that money because he has access to resources
and the capacity to do a lot of good. But you are more risk adverse, so you want to focus in on.
I'm watching the border. I'm being paid to be risk averse.
Okay, so now since you're so risk adverse, we have 10 people at the border, and 9 of them are going to be totally great workers, don't commit any crimes, but one of the 10 is going to be a rapist. So here's the question. Do you let all 10 in? You only have one choice out of 2. Do you let all 10 in, knowing you're going to let in 9 great people and 1 rapist, or do you let nobody in? Remember, you plan for the worst, and you're very risk adverse.
And I know for a fact one of them
is a rapist and will rape. Yeah.
I would probably not let any of them in.
Okay, so you're consistent.
Yeah.
So now we can apply what's happening to actually today.
How?
Calm down, relax. Please.
No, I want to. Is 10% of everyone?
No, I'm not making any judgment on the degree of crime. Don't go there. I'm not doing anything like that.
I think you knew that would have to happen.
But I'm using your risk aversion against you now. So if you had the choice between, let's assume that at least one person who crosses at a non-port of entry is a criminal out of the millions who have in the last 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
You're risk adverse. You plan for the worst.
But I can't control whether they cross or not.
I'm going to ask you now. If you could control and make that border sealed, they can still go through the port of entry where everybody will be adjudicated there. But if you could, would you seal the borders to prevent that one person from crossing?
No.
Why not?
Because I don't know that that's necessarily going to make things safer.
No, we know it will, because one of them we know is a murderer or a rapist or whatever, and who will rape and come in and rape and murder.
But why? Okay, but I don't understand the hypothetical.
Now you're being consistent with the 10. With the 10, you said, no, I'm not going to let anybody in. I'm just expanding now to the whole border.
Okay, but the original one was two people with the same motivations. You even tried to control for the crime thing, which was ridiculous. Like that one required omniscience, right? Some degree of clairvoyance, at least. Now you're trying to say, do I have that same level of clairvoyance? Do I know someone's getting through?
Yeah, one person will get through if you don't seal the border and that person's a murderer or a rapist.
No, I don't think that level of paranoia justifies the security.
Okay, with the 10 people, you said you wouldn't let them in, but if I expand that to a million, then you would let that one person in.
If it's 1 in a million,
yeah. So 1 in 10, you'd say no, but 1 in a million, you would say yes. You would sacrifice whoever is going to be raped or killed. You would sacrifice that person.
You don't know you can't make that prediction.
I don't know. In the hypothetical, I'm saying that's going to happen.
No, what the hypothetical that you're trying to put up here is that if the border is not sealed, then 1 in a million of these 1 in a million will be a criminal that guarantees gets a victim. None of these things are guaranteed. Right?
Oh my goodness!
You just said if he gets through, he will victimize someone, right?
Right.
That will happen, right?
Right.
But you don't have to have that, right? Just because the borders, first of all, just because the border sealed doesn't mean you can't get the 1 in a million rapists through anyway. Secondly, even if you don't have a wall, sealing the border is not a justification for keeping. You said seal the border, right? You want to seal the border. How do you want to seal it? Soldiers holding hands? Are they leg locked? Is it a wall?
This is a hypothetical. So whatever you want to imagine to seal the border perfectly, that's what you can imagine.
If you've got patrols and stuff, you do not need to quote unquote necessarily seal the border if you're trying to catch the 1 in a million criminals that comes through, because they're probably already getting caught. So no, I don't think that whatever sealing the border entails is necessarily justified by keeping this 1 in a million criminal out, because we already have things in place to catch that 1 in a million criminal.
Okay,
and there isn't anything to suggest that just because that person happens to get across the border, that necessarily they will get. That was a different scenario, right?
Not really.
It's
the same hypothetical. All I did is I shifted it from, instead of 10 people, millions. That's all I did.
Okay, so what's the rate then? I'm looking at a group of 10 people and one of them is a really bad guy. But I'm looking at a million people and one of them is a really bad guy. It sounds like on basis, I have very little reason to be concerned about this one guy out of a million. But if I'm running into a group of 9 cool people with one serious psychopath with them, those aren't great numbers. Now we're talking about like a rate of 10%.
You're okay with 1 in a million, but not 1 in 10. I got it.
Right. That's just basic, right? That's consistent.
Okay. So, well, initially you pushed back, but anyhow, but now you're being consistent again. You're saying that 1 in a million, you're okay with a rape and murder if it's 1 in a million, but not if it's 1 in 10. Now, what is better?
Wait, what?
You're willing to risk a murder or rape if it's 1 in a million, right?
I'm not saying that. You're saying that that's my position. It isn't. You're adding a component. I don't think that allowing the one criminal out of a million necessarily means that I have to be cool with a crime necessarily happening.
You're willing to let them in. That's what I mean.
No, I'm willing to allow that chance, right? That's the point, right? There's a chance that this guy will get in.
In the hypothetical, it's not a chance; it's a guarantee.
In your hypothetical, it's a guarantee that one gets in. And so the only thing
that one criminal gets in and will murder or rape.
And the only okay, so the crime. Oh, see, because you weren't clear about that before. The crime is guaranteed.
Will you let the million people in, knowing that one will rape and murder?
That one person gets to claim a victim. Guaranteed. Nothing's going to stop them. I know this.
Yeah,
it will happen. No, then I wouldn't let them in.
Okay.
But again, now I'm clairvoyant, and the hypothetical is broken.
You wouldn't let the 999,999 in if you knew for sure that one will rape or murder. Got it. Now
I have the ability to know that somebody's doing that, so I can accurately punish them before they've done it. Right. So everything that you're saying is predicated on my ability to fairly punish someone for a crime they have not yet committed. You've made me a precog. Have you seen Minority Report?
Okay, so
spoiler alert: only one of them can do it. The other two float under the cooler.
Is it better to know the backgrounds of these million people than not know their backgrounds?
Of refugees or immigrants?
Any of you, all of the above.
So you're going to have the same exact. You're gonna go through
in a pool of a million people. You're going to have some refugees. You're going to have some just regular immigrants. You're going to have some asylum seekers. You're going to have.
Well, the refugees will be asylum seekers. That's the same thing.
Okay.
Unless they're like the Haitians, where they. So
the question is it better to know the backgrounds of these 1 million people? Is that better than not knowing the backgrounds?
I would say it's better. Yeah.
Okay, we're agreed. Now, do you think that people coming across and
we're never going to get their DVT, but it's good seeing you. Have a good night.
Do you think people who come across the border at a non-port of entry and get away from, and in other words, they don't even talk to the immigration people, the border patrol, that's worse than if they go through the port of entry, right? Because we can't background check them at all.
You're saying if they manage to sneak in and avoid getting picked up,
right?
Yes, that would be worse than if they can go through a checkpoint and actually get
Okay, so so what you just said is it's better to go through a port of entry compared to someone crossing illegally at a non-port of entry and not talking to any border guards. So we're both okay. Thank you. We're both agreed that one's better than the other. So if we had a way to lower the amount of people coming across at a non-port of entry, that would lower the number of getaways. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Now, what do you think is the best way to lower the number of people coming across illegally at a non-port of entry? Because we don't want getaways, right? Because we can't have background checks then. What's your recommendation to lower the number of people who cross at a non-port of entry?
Sorry, I had to read this. I missed a super chat from YouTube Punk. Thanks for the super chat. Nationalist Doug voting for a felon who tried to steal the votes of over 81 million Americans. No immigrants do that. You remain a hypocrite, Doug. Harsh, but fair. I mean, you are voting for a criminal, so.
Yeah, but I don't think he's a real felon, but that's a whole new topic. But anyhow.
But that's you making bad excuses for bad behavior, right? You would not allow a migrant off the hook.
I don't think he ever raped a woman or sexually abused
I'm talking about his fraud.
I don't think the
doesn't matter what
many cases. Yeah, but that's
okay. But hang on.
Whole new topic.
But if a person with his rap sheet tried to cross the border and claim, like, you use this on me, would you let him in? If you no, I mean okay. Wow. Even if you felt like that the woman made it up and those are phony felonies.
No, but if he appealed and won the appeal, then maybe yeah. But anyhow,
also hang on. A follow up question to that before we move on to the thing. If knowing that Trump's got that criminal record, whether you think that the fraud is whatever, let's say that he loses the election, he renounces his citizenship, and he does go to Mexico and he builds a Mar-a-Lago 2 down there, a big palace, and then a massive hurricane comes through, wipes out that portion of Mexico. Mexico's a basket case. He tries to come here. Would you let him in?
No, he could go somewhere else in Mexico.
Okay, but if he asked to come back here, if he asked for asylum, you would tell him no.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So you were reading the chat, and you said that I asked you a question. What is the best way to lower the number of getaways crossing illegally on our border? I was asking your opinion.
Oh. Well, the first thing that you could do is, one, put in more crossings.
Okay, I agree.
Staff those up. Faster background checks, more judges to adjudicate cases so they could get those turned around in 90 days max rather than a year, 1.7 years average.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Probably better surveillance equipment, but they have pretty good surveillance already. But I wouldn't waste money on like fencing and stuff like that. More like drone surveillance.
Why do you think fencing's not effective?
I don't think it's worth the price.
You put a price on a woman being raped?
Is that wall gonna protect even one person? I haven't seen any statistics that show how having a solid physical wall between two countries is going to help prevent crimes associated with that. And the concern,
have you ever been to Israel?
The concern that no, and I never will. The concern that you have for
is there any Jews from Israel here who can educate Spatchcock on how walls and fencing can save lives and prevent rapes and all that?
Or how easy it makes to kill lots of civilians. I mean, it's literally fish in a barrel. The situation that I would bring up to you is, why are you concerned about the supposed inevitability of someone getting victimized by a migrant that crosses over?
Because I'm like you. I am just like you. I plan for the worst.
But if I'm planning for the worst, I'm not going to deal with them. That's not going to be if it's a border situation, gloves off the hypothetical. I'm more concerned with the fact that my own citizens are two and a half times more likely to kill me or rape me than the people that are trying to come here.
Good point.
So what do you do about them?
Right. We got to still do the law and order with them too, but
not with Trump.
But if you wanted,
Doug, stop. You do not have a leg to stand on here. You will make excuses for that guy, and he's got a rap sheet of 34 felonies. And a civil court, a jury, found him liable for defamation.
Do you agree with all jury?
Assault.
Do you agree with all jury verdicts?
No, not all of them, but I agree with this one, and I agreed with the
and I disagree with that one. So
okay, so you just disagree with it.
Yeah.
Do you have any reason? Okay, but that's not the point. The point is, the dude was found guilty of 34 felonies.
Right.
What do you just brush that aside?
Yes, Jefferson, read my lips. That does not bother me.
You're a hypocrite.
Why?
Because if an individual commits a misdemeanor or felony by stepping over an imaginary line while they're trying to, and you lose your mind to the point where they
can't run for president.
Of course they're not. But you made the statement, and this is what made me critical of what you were putting in the live chat. If they've done that, they cannot ever be considered to be here legally. And I told you that was not the case.
I never said that. I did not say that.
You typed it in my live chat.
I never said that they can never be here legally.
You said that if
there is a process where if they got deported and tried again and paid a fine or whatever. I never typed that in the live stream chat because
you didn't.
It takes too much work. But I never said that it's impossible.
I know you didn't, but you emphasized, you wrote, it will be in the I can't scroll back to it now, but it will eventually appear when this uploads. You wrote that if they crossed at a non-authorized point, they are not here legally. And I said they are considered here legally if they get an asylum court date.
Yeah.
They are then an asylum seeker, and they are therefore here legally. And you seem to push back on that a little bit, and then kind of seem to accept that I was right. And now you're offering another whatever. Okay. What I'm trying to say is it does not do anything for me or any of your listeners. I don't know why you're putting that up again. We already talked about that. If you are willing to just hand wave away.
This is why I disagree with you, because of this.
All that, what did that does not mean that, Jesus Christ, Doug. It's like I'm talking to a kid. That does not mean that they're not considered here legally after they get their asylum court case, right?
No, it's when they cross illegally and seek asylum, they're presumed ineligible for as getting asylum.
They can be, yes. That increases the fact that they can now be extra judgmental and deny them. But that does not mean that just because someone crossed illegally, that they necessarily are not remaining here.
Right. There are exceptions, but the vast, you've even agreed that that's over 70. You said over 70% of people who seek asylum, their cases are denied, meaning that when they are adjudicated in a court of law, which you might disagree with, they're saying they claimed asylum and they were full of shit. 70% of refugees who claim asylum, a court says they're full of shit.
The court does not say that they're full of shit. The court decides they don't meet the legal requirements to be considered a refugee, and then they are deported. That doesn't mean that they're not. Doug, do you understand?
I mean by full of shit? It's just a more flowery way of saying it.
Okay. What if the people don't realize the nuance of what makes a refugee and what doesn't? You do realize they ratcheted that up with the executive order.
I'm talking about the courts, and you admitted it earlier.
That's what I'm talking about too. It's part of the rule.
Of refugees who come in and claim asylum are full of shit.
That is not what that means. If you think that, you are an ignorant asshole. It does not mean that they're full of shit. It means they got denied. You can't assume.
That's what I mean when I say full of shit.
Get out of here.
You're getting triggered by the phrase shit
because you're acting like an ignorant uncle at Thanksgiving.
They're just full of crap. Like, let me be more nuanced.
An administrative court decides out of 70% of the time that these people are not going to be considered refugees. It does not mean that the people did not make an honest pitch and claim like, yes,
I didn't say that. Sure, they made an honest pitch for it, but then the court decided that what they claim as refugee status is not really refugee status. That's what I mean by full of shit.
But that's not them being full of shit. That is an administration.
Why are you white knighting this so much? I mean, it's just a phrase.
Oh my God, Jesus.
You have such feel sorry for them.
No, this is just one of those things. As an administrator, you have to be careful about what you're talking about. What you're misrepresenting isn't the asylum seekers. You're misrepresenting the law. They don't decide that these people are up to something, or they're just they got a weak claim or something. For whatever reason, and there's a lot of different little nuanced ways that they get disqualified. They don't hit the mark, the weird magic mark, and then they are sent home.
That's what I mean by full of shit. That's all.
When you say that, what you're implying, and you know you're fucking doing this, you're implying that those people were up to something from the get-go. You know that you are casting aspersions on the asylum seekers.
I'm sure at least one did. I'm sure one did.
If you say that any of them, the 70% are all full of shit, then you're casting aspersion on 70% of asylum seekers. Do you not know how to do this math?
Do you think if someone had a really strong refugee case, asylum case, like the hurricane example you gave, like if I don't seek refuge in the United States, I will die because otherwise there's no place to flee to and a hurricane's going to kill me. Do you think that if they had such a strong case that they would go to a port of entry or not through a port of entry? Because
no idea. Why do you think people don't go through a port of entry? It was because it's backlog. That was your reason? It depends on the strength of it. If you've got somebody that is fleeing because they
knowing the CLP rule.
Well, the CLP rule makes it so that if the crossing is just high, they don't have to use any discretion at all. They can just start once they hit that. So that doesn't matter.
The CLP rule says if you cross at a non-port of entry, you're presumed to be ineligible for asylum. Why would you risk that?
You're presumed, but it's not guaranteed.
Why would you risk that to be presumed ineligible if you had a strong case and go through a port of entry?
I don't know, but
you do know. You just don't want to say it.
What are you talking about? I don't know. I'm not trying to assume.
Because they know they don't have a strong case and they just want to be in the U.S. for 5 to 7 years until their court date to make some U.S. cash.
Crossing at
That's the same thing as being full of shit.
They're more likely to get turned away immediately and forever if they get caught that way. Their chances are infinite. They have no incentive to do that unless their life is in danger.
5 to 7 years of making U.S. cash.
No, those ones end up getting kicked out, man. And they don't get an asylum hearing.
Unless, in what time frame?
An immediate, with the new rule that you were talking about, it's an immediate rejection.
Oh, really?
Because they can, yes, because they can presume that they're not. They don't
have to wait for their court date.
No, that's the whole point. That was the point of Title 42. Where have you been? No, I have been making videos about this. You have not listened to any of my.
We are talking about two different things. If someone crosses claims asylum.
Hang on. Let me make sure that we've got the path here, right? Okay. If you come into this country and you want to claim asylum, you can try to do it through the app. You can do it at a port of entry. Or if you cross illegally and get picked up, you can make the claim as they're processing you for the misdemeanor of having crossed illegally.
Right.
Once you get that date, then if you get that court date. But what the executive order allows is that if the crossings have hit a certain ceiling, they don't have to take the claim of asylum seeking. So you're immediately kicked out.
I understand Biden changed things because of political pressure. But what I'm talking about is if someone comes across at a non-port of entry, claims asylum,
yes,
can they not stay in the United States and work?
Not necessarily. It depends on it depends on the discretion of Border Patrol now.
Okay. So a border guard lets them in.
It sends them to a court case. Yes, they'll go before.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now, this is the $1 million question. What's the average time from them being let in to their
1.7 years? 1.7 years.
1.7 years. So they can earn U.S. cash for 1.7 years.
Yes.
And still be full of shit. That's the point I'm making. That's
not a good point, man.
Sure it is.
No, how much money? Okay, first of all, if they're getting an asylum, like you do understand, like, do you know what the statistics are even for getting to that point?
To getting at what point?
There's two different things happening here, right? The first step is to even get accepted for the ability to appear before a judge to make your case.
Right, and do you know what that entails?
Basically begging them to do that and hoping they don't take the fact that you crossed illegally into account, because with Biden's executive order and that bill that was about to get passed.
Very little, right? It takes very little.
No, the guards could kick you out for damn near any reason.
But what determines whether or not they kick you out? Do you know?
Background checks?
No.
They can run a background check very, very quickly. They do run background checks on all those.
What if they have no ID?
If they're coming over with absolutely no identifying paperwork at all,
yes.
I don't know what I don't know what they have to do in that case.
You know what they do? They do a 30-minute interview.
Okay. And then they run back.
They ask some basic questions. I don't know the exact questions, but
where you're from,
where you're from, what's your reason for claiming asylum, and then on the discretion of the Border Patrol guard, they will either let you in or not.
Right.
Okay. And then, so basically, if you're a person who wants to make U.S. cash, you lie. Then you get in the U.S. for a couple of years, make U.S. cash, and then you might be deported later if you don't show up to your court date, or you might just continue to stay in the U.S. Do you think that's so impossible, what I'm saying?
No, but here's the problem with what you're saying. It's the motivations that you seem to be saying are just automatic with this. If an individual,
not automatic.
Whatever. If an individual lies convincingly enough, let's say that they are as you say, full of shit. They get through the situation with a border guard. Border guard gives them, okay, you're gonna get called with an appearance. You're gonna get your court date. Whenever, off you go. Right. That individual basically has to work illegally. Right. They can't work legally unless they fill out an asylum seeker's right to work permit. And that's going to take a few months for that to get approved. So in the meantime, they're probably going to have to work under the table somewhere. This is the United States. Somebody's going to let them do that. While they're going through that, if they do not show up for their court, for that
Right.
court case. A bench warrant is immediately issued for them with a deportation order. They are caught
Right.
and sent back. There's
They
no
are
incentive for,
caught and sent back. You think it's that easy?
they can never come back. According to
How are
current
they going to
immigration,
catch them if they don't know where they live?
how are they going to catch them if they don't know where they live?
Yeah.
They do have investigators, you know.
Yeah, they can try to find them.
Oh, so how is Doug going to deport all these bad?
That
spooky-
is the problem. I've asked that same question. If Trump were here, if Vance were here right now, that's the question I'd ask him. There's no way you can find them if they choose not to be found.
No, that's not true.
Well, sorry, not no way, but it's going to be incredibly difficult.
It's very hard to hide in this country.
Oh,
It is. If you want to be involved in anything,
not if you're doing things illegally. Like if you're, like you said, if you're working under the table, like.
But
If
we
you
have
do things legally, yeah, and if you have a permanent home residence, yeah, it's easy to find people.
But we're putting systems in place to make that worse, right? We put in
Well,
a
yeah,
system
that's good. I agree with you there.
Yeah. So, I mean, the first thing that needs to get fixed is the at least the asylum seeker work permission. If you trust them to come in here and wait around until their court date, you probably ought to authorize them to be able to get hired by American employers.
I'd put ankle bracelets on them.
You would monitor them.
Yeah.
Okay. So why would you then need a wall?
Well, you could do both, but
Why would you need a wall? It would be better to monitor them. Keep your friends close, your enemies closer. You don't put.
So you don't disagree with that then?
A monitor?
Yeah. No, an ankle bracelet on all people crossing the border illegally.
For a felon like Trump, yeah, I'd shoot him full of trackers.
What about just the poor guy who wants to make a better life?
Well, that guy was clairvoyant and knew he would never commit a crime, right? So,
but wouldn't that solve a lot of problems? Or actually, you could do Mission Impossible and inject them with you drug them first so they don't know where you put it. Well, no, they get to get a fancy machine, but you put a tracker somewhere underneath their skin, and so if they don't show up to the court date, that's another crime. Then we just pull up the iPad and they're in Chicago. Let's go pick them up. Would you be for that?
Have they tried that?
No. This is Mission Impossible type stuff we're talking about.
No, actually, the RFID chips that they put in, those are dirt cheap.
Oh, well, maybe we should do it. You and I, you can be the progressive side. I'll be the conservative side, and we'll say, hey, we both agree we should put chips in people, in these immigrants.
But you might not be able to legally get that done.
Yeah, we'll find a way.
Because here's the thing: this was attempted in school kids. Really? Somebody brought the proposal. Oh yeah. It was like 15, 20 years ago. I remember hearing about this. They were talking about somebody brought up the idea that like, if you want to completely eliminate the even the possibility that a kid goes missing or can get trafficked, we just get these affordable, they're about the size of a grain of rice, and it's put somewhere in the kid's skin, and then if they ever go missing or anything, you could find them right away. But there were problems from privacy advocates and things like that, and it never went anywhere.
I heard who was it? Elon Musk said this, and I know you probably like Elon Musk because you're in the computer world, right? Oh no, you don't like Elon?
Did you have you seen him? I mean,
he said this the other day. He said letting people in the country should be like the NBA draft. You want to let in your best, brightest, the most.
So he's got to go then.
So
he's ruling himself out.
You disagree with that then?
Well, for immigration, again, two issues going on. You don't need to IQ check people who are trying to come over here because Venezuela erupted in a murderous campaign of political violence, or Mexico's getting blown away by a hurricane or something. That's not going to be a consideration. Like, only the smart ones, only the ones that have invented something get to come in. If it's actual immigration, somebody's looking to settle here. Yeah, I mean the government can put some kind of meritocratic right thing on there if they decide they want to do that. They pretty much already have. I mean,
Right.
if,
Yeah.
if
Well, if
somebody
you
from
do it
another country is
legally,
coming
yeah,
in,
that's
yeah,
what they
if you,
did to me. They chose the best and brightest, and that's how I got here.
but you got to come if you're coming from a STEM background, that will get you in.
That helps. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have
So
to
if
be
you
STEM.
no, but usually it's doctor, lawyer,
Even fruit
entertainer.
pickers in Arizona here. I know a lot of businessmen who do things the right way, and they take the time and pay the money and do the effort to get the proper visas in place.
Yeah, those visas aren't expensive. Those
Eh,
temporary agriculture ones.
Yeah, and then, but
Yeah,
even then, they choose who comes over, and they choose the best and the brightest and the strongest fruit pickers.
just like that. They just know it,
Well,
like the precog.
well, just like any type of businessman who's hiring people, you do interviews, you do contacts, you
Check their genitals, make them cough.
yeah,
Put
make
put
sure
a
they're
tracker in
healthy.
them.
You don't
Put a
want you don't want a guy
put a
with
tracker in them.
prostate cancer picking your fruit because they might keel over and die. You want the healthy, right?
Well, I mean, at the rate that they're paying them, I don't think that they're going. I mean, they're poor itinerant agriculture workers. They're not healthy.
Did you know that there are about the same or fewer Americans who were born here that have jobs than immigrants? Like 2019, I phrased that horribly. In 2019, there was a certain number of employed people in the United States. In
Right.
2024, that number is flat or even down. Did you know that?
Yeah, it is down a little bit.
Yes, thank you. Now, as a nationalist, as myself, I view that as a bad thing. Now,
Why?
there could be other reasons, like, but because I'm a nationalist, I think Americans first is a good thing. But I understand you disagree because you're not a nationalist. You think, oh no, it doesn't matter if a foreign national gets the job or American. But call me a little bit tribal in that way, but I do think that America is for Americans. And that doesn't mean they can be of any skin shade, any ethnicity, but America is primarily for Americans. And I know
Can they be trans?
oh yeah, of course. Do you know if I started a business, I'm going to hire mostly trans women because you get the intelligence of a woman, but the strength and speed and the testosterone of a man. I mean,
now that you've said that, you will immediately be sued for discrimination. So, congratulations. Your business dreams are
you
over.
can't be sued if you hire lots of trans people.
If you're only hiring them and you're discriminating against them.
Actually, that's interesting because you're not discriminating based on sex. You're discriminating based on being trans. Can you be sued? I don't think so.
It's gender discrimination. Yes, you could be sued, but
It's not even sexual orientation.
It's gender.
It's gender, but there's no protection against gender yet.
Not yet. No.
So I could say I could start a business tomorrow and say I'm only going to hire trans people, and there's not a thing the government could do against it and say that's discriminatory, right?
It depends on what level of the government, because while the federal government doesn't have that, some states do. So you'd still have to mind your P's and Q's.
In fact, I could say I'm only going to hire trans women who vote for Trump. That technically is not illegal.
No, you can't do that.
Yeah, you can discriminate based on political party. I looked it up the other day.
Why? And I don't think that you can, though.
Yes, you can. You can discriminate based on political party.
Because if you do it when the person is already employed, it's grounds for hostile workplace.
I can fire people for being too fat. I can fire people for being ugly. I can fire people for voting for Harris.
But you can't cite it as a reason.
Sure, you can
legally.
There's no protections based on political party.
On political party, no.
There's no protections based on.
But there is protections for
BMI.
There are protections, I believe. Like say for instance, you found out that you had an employee that voted for Harris, and you wanted to retaliate, so you start making trouble for her at work, or just giving her the crap jobs and stuff. That can be grounds for her to file a suit against you for a hostile work environment because you're basing it on her.
Okay, that's different.
Political
I wouldn't
decision.
be hostile. I just fire her.
It's still grounds for a hostile work environment. The hypothetical is you just start treating her like crap at work. I'm saying
you
if
fire
that happened.
someone, I'm asking ChatGPT because ChatGPT is never wrong. Can you fire someone based on political party? I think the answer is yes, but maybe I'm wrong. Oh, my ChatGPT is down. Can you find out? Can I fire someone for being a Democrat?
In most states, private employers can fire their employees for their political activities or affiliations as long as the firing isn't a form of voter intimidation or coercion.
Ah, there you go. I was right. Okay. So I'm going to start a business and I'm going to hire 100 trans women because I want the intelligence of a woman, yet the strength of a man. And they have to vote for Republican. And I tell you, it's going to be an amazing business. They're going to be conservative trans women people. I mean, that's the unicorn of human. Come on, you got to smile a little bit. You got to smile just a little bit.
Von Helton also goes to ChatGPT style AI for all his legal advice, and he's about to lose his property to foreclosure sales.
Anyhow, I got to go. We've been talking way too long again. Why is it that every time you and I talk, 2 hours fly by like it's nothing?
Because I'm an excellent raconteur.
Well, I need to ask a favor before I go. Please don't make a mistake and have this mysteriously go missing.
Well, it's under 3 hours, so now this one should be good. If it was over 3 hours, I'd probably like clip it or delete it or something, because after 3 hours they start getting unwieldy.
Well, I did record this as well, so I got your audio and my video, but I don't have your video.
I didn't say you could do that.
If you do, I don't need your permission to record this.
I know.
So, but so I do have it in case you do lose it. Well, at least I have a 1 hour, 25 minutes.
You still did kind of dodge the fact that you are blowing off the fact that the guy that you're voting for is a bigger criminal than the people that you're sweating about possibly getting him over the border.
No,
and I think that's just really weird.
Not all. If
1 in a million, Doug.
Trump's never murdered anyone.
Well, that's
right.
Okay, but he's got.
So if an immigrant comes across and murders someone, then Trump is not as bad.
We didn't talk about murders. The 1 in a million guy was a rapist, and so was Trump.
No, E. Jean Carroll said that Trump did not rape her.
No, he was found liable for sexual assault. It's a tricky nuance in New York state law that it couldn't be proved.
Jean Carroll, when talking to Anderson Cooper, said Trump did not rape me.
She doesn't like using the word. She didn't like using the word because her explanation was she felt that it sensationalized it too much.
Believe all women.
She testified that he did insert himself into her, but because it couldn't be corroborated, there was no other evidence to that. They only found him guilty of sexual assault under the New York Penal Code because it defines rape to be specifically. Crazy, well, so did he, and he kept talking about it, and it cost him.
Yeah, so it did cost him. Anyhow, thanks for having me on.
But it's not going to cost him an election if everybody like you is so hypocritical about.
I think it's a coin flip. What do you think? Who's going to win?
Based on what I'm seeing right now, I still think it's going to be close, but I think Harris is going to win.
Yeah, and again, I think it's going to be close, and I think Trump will win. But
she's not as many points ahead at this stage as Biden was when he won in 2020. He was like 8. I think on average he was 8 or 9 points ahead, and he won by 4.5, 5. She's about 4 and 5 points ahead of him, so it's going to be a squeaker, maybe, unless the polls are wrong and one of them blows out the other. I don't know.
But I kind of hope Harris wins. Have you heard me say that before?
No. Why would you hope that?
Because I think over the next 4 years, because of our fiscal situation, the poop's really going to hit the fan in this country, and I'd rather the Dems be blamed for it than the Republicans. So it's a very selfish reason, but no, seriously, I'm going to be fine either way, no matter who wins this election. It's not going to matter to me, like my real life. But So if Trump wins and I'm right about the poop hitting the fan, then of course, like you're going to blame, oh, it's Trump's fault and whatever. But it's not going to be Trump's fault. It's not going to be Harris's fault if the poop hits the fan. It's going to be like the fault of decades of Federal Reserve intervention. So if the poop hits the fan, I'd rather Dems be blamed for it, and that's why I'm okay with Harris winning.
I wouldn't be too certain that that's going to happen that soon, because I would just give you one example to research: Japan.
You can't compare Japan to the United States.
You certainly can.
Japan is the most racist, monolithic society out there. United States is the least racist, and like they.
Why are you bringing up racism? It's not a cultural thing. I'm talking about the money.
I know
the money.
Culture has to do with the bond buying.
Do you? Oh, okay. So you're talking about like race war? Is that what you're banking on?
I'm talking about the pride. Like there's a lot of people like you announced that you're not. Well, I won't repeat what you said, but
I'm not patriotic.
Right. Yeah. And so, but Japan's way different. I mean, what's the percent of foreign ownership? Well, I don't want to get into that. No, we'll be here for another hour. But yeah, you could be right, and that Japan could be a model for the future of the United States. But also, I think you're wrong, and I think
I mean, I don't think it's a model that we need to adopt. But we're kind of going that financially. We seem to be moving in that way. There were people that were predicting the immediate doom of Japan because all the debt and all the government spending and all this kind of stuff never happened.
But what do you think? I honestly don't know the answer to this. I've asked a lot of people, and Tom Rabbit, I asked him this. He asked me this too, and we're both perplexed. Like, if inflation doesn't subside, and let's say it actually gets worse again, the Federal Reserve can't lower interest rates. We're approaching $1 trillion a year in interest payments to the bondholders, which is 75% American owned. But still, you're going to have the crowding out of other line items within the budget, which is going to cause a massive exponential increase in the ceiling limit. And it's going to become glaring to other countries that it's a Ponzi scheme, that we're printing our money. We'll lose maybe our reserve status. The US dollar will plummet. That will cause even more inflation, which will cause more increase in interest rates, which will cause more interest payments and crowding out, which will devalue the US dollar more. It's just going to feed upon itself. How do you fix that?
I don't think that you worry about it.
I only see one solution, and that
you're not going to say bankruptcy, are you?
Yeah, default. You got to default.
It can't. It won't work. That would be awful.
Other countries have done it.
Yeah, but I mean, there's no reason to even really consider that as
Brazil. Who did it?
Yeah, but in those cases, any of those kinds of cases, usually the issue is that they,
even Greece did it.
Well, they would peg their currency to the currency of another country. Argentina did it again with the new goofball that's down there. They pegged it to the Argentinian peso to the U.S. dollar again, which didn't work for them before.
Like you're different. You're an MMT guy, but most people are not. And so, like your answer was, don't worry about it. But most people will worry about it. So they're going to try to come up with a solution. And the only solution, there's another solution. And the other solution is you have to start growing your economy bigger than the growth rate in debt. But right now, our debt is growing at 7% a year, roughly.
I don't think that's accurate either. I don't think that applies. I don't think you grow your way out of it. That's not going to change anything.
Well, in my opinion, you can, but I don't think it's realistic. Like to have a GDP growth consistently at 8, 9, 10% every year. No, that's not going to happen.
No, and it's not sustainable because unless it's based on some kind of Dodge or something, tulips,
Yeah, I agree. It's not sustainable. So I don't say this is my fear, and I think no matter who becomes president, this problem is going to exist. You could be right that it might take 20 years, 10 years, instead of 4. But I'd rather have Harris in power when it happens.
Well, I would too, because as long as it took Donald Trump to make decisions in a pandemic, and that was pretty easy, sick people feel bad and die
Oh,
soon.
come
He
on.
couldn't even do that, right?
How
So
many lives would have been saved if Biden was president instead of Trump
we
or
still would
Hillary?
have
I
lost.
should say.
We would have lost hundreds of
No,
thousands,
Biden.
but I don't think we wouldn't have lost. But what was our number? 1.2 million?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we would have lost that many.
How many?
How many do I? Like I said, I think we would probably still be counting somewhere in the low hundreds of thousands of dead.
So you honestly think because Trump was president and not a Democrat president, that instead of 1.2, if there would have been a Democrat president, it might have been 200,000. And 1 million lives could have been saved.
Not even a Democrat.
Given we know what other countries lost as well.
If it had been a Republican, if it had been Chris Christie, we wouldn't have lost as many. It's not the fact that he's a Republican; it's the fact.
Okay, fair enough. But
yeah,
you think
dumb.
Trump alone cost 1 million people's lives, roughly?
One of the first things he wanted to do was throw his weight around, and he kicked out the pandemic preparedness group because we hadn't had one in a while. So fuck them. So he got rid of them, and they're supposed to be there to kind of run the football if something like that happens. So, and that was set up by his Republican predecessor, George W. Bush, put that in place.
But given the
one
millions
of
of people who died in other countries, and some of them had trust experts, and they're just very progressive, democratic, want to do everything the right way. They still lost millions of people too, or at least hundreds of thousands, like per capita. Like maybe not as many as the Americans, but like people are just going to die from COVID. That's it.
Yeah, it's a novel virus. Yeah,
and there's nothing you can do about it. You're going to die.
No, there's things that you can do about it.
Well, sorry, I mean, yes, you can do, but even if you do those things, people are going to die, is my point.
What you don't want to do is feed a novel virus a bunch of things that can cause it to mutate, and we did exactly that.
Oh, hang on now. This is interesting. I want you to think really hard how what you just said could be false. That it might be better to have it mutate faster.
No,
think about it.
No.
You don't want to think about it?
I'm thinking about it right now. If you are trying to say that if there was a principle in microbiology that made it the case that the more a microorganism like a virus mutates as it takes on newer hosts, that it will become less deadly, then yes, making sure it gets through a lot of people. But that is not a principle in microbiology. There is no guarantee. We could end up running into a COVID strain in another couple of ones that's even worse than the original. It just depends. So the last thing you want to guarantee,
but
not even a guarantee. You do not feed a novel virus any food. You don't want it to change. You want it to go.
I understand what you're saying, and I don't disagree with you. But when you said with such confidence that, like, if we knew, and we don't, but I think even probability-wise, I think we can err on one side or the other, that a mutation may lead to a less deadly form. Then
there's no.
Hear me out.
It's not even an increased.
I'm saying if that's the case. I'm saying if
it's not.
If
that's
the case. I know it's not the case. It's not the case. It's not the case. But if it were, see, I
already said this.
This is critical thinking.
I already said this.
It's not the case. It never happens.
No,
but if it were to happen,
I said before, if there was a rule in microbiology that those organisms get weaker, they become less deadly as they mutate, then feed them victims. I said that. Did you not hear me say that?
No.
So what you're telling me, that's what I said. You nodded in assent that you understood what I said. So, okay, that's what I meant.
Okay, so you do agree with me. In that case, then you actually do want it to mutate faster and feed it victims.
Possibly.
Well, no, in this case, that'd be true. It not possibly. It would be,
No. It depends on how many people it can initially kill.
Right. So let's say
you have to be careful about.
Right.
If it has a 70% death rate, you do not feed it to anything. Do you understand?
Yeah. Okay, I understand. But I'm talking about I'm talking about what we actually had. So we had roughly what was it? 1%, 5% death rate initially. Delta. No,
I think
Delta was
the initial one. I think was 3.5. Delta or Omicron were more. I think they were like 4.5.
No, Omicron was less. Way less.
Delta was the one that peaked.
Delta was the bad one.
I think that one might have gotten as high as 5, but I can't remember.
So the point is, for the viewers at home, that if you have a situation where it mutates into a less deadly, you're right, Jefferson, it depends on how many you initially kill, but it could be the case that you end up saving lives by letting it mutate.
It will never be the case.
It would be a sacrifice of the first wave.
You could not do that. You would never know. That is based on a fundamental misunderstanding. It's not a good hypothetical. It's a hypothetical based on a sci-fi misunderstanding of how microbiology works. They don't do that. It could get more dangerous with the very next strain. There's no excuse to feed a novel virus to a population of living things just to see how many different strains that you can get, hoping that by the time things get done, the most dominant one running around is just a minor cold. You don't want to do that. You want to snuff it out. And we didn't do that because people didn't want to wear masks and stuff.
But it turned out that it did mutate to a less deadly form.
Well, it depends on who you ask, right? There's still people dealing with long COVID.
I'm talking about just fatalities here, not.
How long did it take for people to understand that?
You disagree with that? That it mutated to a less deadly form?
The strains that are out there now? No,
even back in 2023, 22.
No, because one of those strains that came back, a bunch of people were getting hospitalized again. I think the death rate was back up to just wasn't in the news. The death rates come down because a lot more people are vaccinated, so that's helped. But for the unvaccinated, like the rates of death for some of the last strains were bad.
Oh, so you deny that Omicron is less deadly than Delta?
No, I'm not denying Omicron. I think Omicron was less deadly than Delta.
That's what I'm saying. Omicron was less deadly than Delta. That's all.
But some of the ones now have been doing some real damage. The numbers are going to be skewed because you have some people with either. You do have some immunity to previous versions because people have already been sick.
Do you think the vaccinations that were done by people in 21 have any effect on COVID strains today?
The current strain today, no.
No, of course not. Yeah,
no.
You have to be boosted. Yeah,
not boosted. They don't do boosters anymore. Each one now is a new vaccine.
Right. Sorry.
New strain.
You got to be vaccinated. Right. And the percentage of people who are getting vaccinated for any strain of COVID is what? It's very low.
Yeah, because there was a conservative output
so
to convince people that it was bad.
It's not because of vaccinations today that people's lives are being saved. It's just because it's less deadly.
Well, no, I don't think that that's the case, man. A lot of people have scattershot.
Why aren't 50,000 people a month dying today?
Because now you have people who have already, because most of them have already suffered through previous versions of the virus.
Right. But it's not about vaccinations. It's about self-immunity then, right?
Those are the same thing. You do understand that, right?
Yes. But they have not been vaccinated, correct?
Most people at this point have probably had one of the vaccines and been sick.
I'm just demonstrating to you that
this is not good critical thinking. No, this is not. The immune system does what?
You just admitted that you need a new vaccine for the current strain. So any vaccinations done years ago are obsolete and is not going to help you. Correct?
No, that's not necessarily. No, that's not necessarily.
Or help you very, very, very little.
They're basically the original vaccine would help you with the original base protein from the original version.
Right.
But now they've moved on so far that you probably wouldn't need that one.
You've seen the efficacy charts of how it goes down over time.
What the effect
of the vaccine?
That's true for almost all vaccines.
Right. So if someone takes a vaccine and back in 2021, and what efficacy does it have today? Even for the same strain.
The point is that one, it's giving your immune system a workout, right? You don't have to contract and suffer with the full virus.
Was it
you give
5% efficacy at this point? 1%?
No, they're higher than that. 5%. The original one was something like the Moderna and Pfizer ones were like 93 and 94.
I know, but the efficacy dropped as time went on, right?
Of the vaccines? No.
No?
If
within the same strain? No.
What's affecting what affects the efficacy rate now? The
Why do they have
reason
boosters?
they don't have, like I told you, they don't have boosters now.
No. Back then, why did they have boosters?
Because they felt that if they could boost the antibody reaction to the original core protein, that would give you,
because the efficacy dropped.
No, they would add in new information for one of the strains, but it would inevitably be late because it was mutating so quickly. The thought was that you could put the booster in there along with a new one, and they would both work together. What they ended up finding out is that they probably didn't do much. The one new vaccine was probably better. The vaccine that just came out now is 3 strains behind what's currently in circulation already. It's like they're trying to shoot a moving target, an increasingly shrinking moving target. That affects the efficacy rate. If you are vaccinated with the current vaccine and exposed to that exact strain, your safety efficacy for an mRNA vaccine is probably still around 90%.
Have you been vaccinated for COVID? Any strain of COVID?
For all of them, yeah.
Yeah. I bet you could just ask that question. Have you been vaccinated today or recently in 2024 for any strain of COVID in 2024? If your answer is yes, I can almost guarantee you're voting for Harris. If your answer is no, I can almost guarantee you're voting for Trump. No, that doesn't apply to Trump. I think you could say it's this risk aversion.
He fast-tracked it.
It's just like you have this fear. I think an irrational fear of dying from COVID.
I'm not irrationally afraid of migrants, though, like you are.
I'm not afraid of migrants. I think most of them, the vast majority of them, are great people and work hard. I live in Arizona. You come to appreciate people, immigrants from Mexico, but I'm not saying that most of our immigrants are Mexican. But my point is that those small minority of people who are not good for our country, we ought to know who they are and have them come in an orderly way. So we can background check them and don't even let them in the first place. Don't let them in and then have to find them and deport them.
Like the Christians or maybe the atheists or the gays or the socialists. You want to just pulling your chain, man.
I'm going, what are you talking about?
It's a slippery slope if you're like, well, I just think that we need to make sure that the bad type always goes away. And that way the good type the good ones are the Americans.
There are bad people in the world. Don't you admit that?
Of course I do. You're voting for one.
Yeah. So if you believe that Trump's a bad person and if he was an immigrant, don't let him in. Well, you're too feel sorry for him.
I told you I wouldn't let him in. I wouldn't let him in as an immigrant if he was seeking immigration. I wouldn't let him in. I told you I would take his claim for asylum in the event of a disaster. I would accept him possibly as a refugee. You're doing it again.
Just let him die in the hurricane. It's better for society.
That's actually in the Republican platform. Let them die. We're better off.
If you really cared about people, you would let Trump die in a hurricane. But you don't care about people.
But you do admit you just did it again. You just conflated immigration with refugees. Like you keep doing that shit.
Well, I know.
This is why nobody on your side understands any fucking thing about any fucking thing.
Oh, come on.
Dude, you wanted me to entertain a hypothetical where we feed a novel virus to lots of people. Just maybe it's for the greater good. It never would be. You never do that. Never get into epidemiology.
You cannot possibly know that.
Yes, I do. I've talked to microbiologists and epidemiologists. They said rule number 1, novel viruses, you do not give them victims. You want to choke off their food source so they go extinct. You don't feed them to people.
I bet you
give them
the most highly credentialed microbiologists on here right now. And I propose the same hypothetical about having a virus that's deadly, but we know for a fact it will mutate into one that's not deadly at all. And then the question is, we don't care about human lives other than saving the most.
Okay, so, you broke the hypothetical twice. One, we can predict the future, and 2, we don't have to worry about the number of lives it takes.
No, what I'm saying is that you're willing to sacrifice the first wave of people in order to have the greater good of saving more people in the long run. So if that's the parameters of the hypothetical, the microbiologist, I bet you could find one. If there's one listening here in the replay, type in Jefferson's comments.
I know
you can actually save more lives under these terms of the hypothetical by having it mutate into a
But
non-deadly form.
But you're limited to your basic human knowledge, barring the superpower of
No,
clairvoyance.
you're breaking the hypothetical.
You broke it when you said that we can know that it's going to get weaker. You can't know that a novel virus will get weaker. You don't
We're like
know
two
that.
brothers who are fighting. You know that?
This is just your hypotheticals are ridiculous. Like, okay,
You
first
can
of
think
all,
you can reject the hypothetical, but within the hypothetical, I'm right.
no. Okay, within the twisted confines of your logic, where I'm clairvoyant and viruses do things that they don't do, yes, within the confines,
What, viruses
of that
don't mutate into less deadly forms?
They don't, not guaranteed. They do, but they also mutate into more deadly forms,
fact,
which is why you do not feed them. You do not let them eat things. You keep them
If you
away
don't care
from
about
living
the
things.
first wave dying, and you know they're going to mutate into a non-deadly form, then yes, you do feed it.
Or you could just ask people to stay indoors for 60 days, and then it goes away.
It's like burning a part of the forest to save the rest of the forest, like during a forest fire, because then it can't cross over the dead. So basically, you sacrifice let's say 500,000 lives to save 600,000.
Or you could just ask people to stay home for 2 months, and it dies. It doesn't have anything to eat.
That's a whole different issue.
It's not a different issue. It's a better solution. The solution that you have is unnecessary and predicated on bad thinking.
I agree with you. If you're sick, stay at home. That's the best advice ever. I agree.
And get your vaccines.
Yeah, get your vaccines, except if you're a little kid.
No, if you're a little kid, get them all. Don't do what I did. Yeah, get as many as you can. Get some extra so you can squirt it in your mouth. Makes a nice chaser.
Do you know the answer to this question? If someone back in 2021 got the first vaccine, what out of 1,000 people, let's say, how many of them go to the hospital with a severe adverse side effect from the vaccine? Do you know
not the rate? Not the rate you're going to tell me. I did a video. You did a video on this.
What do you think it is? This question is dangerous. What question I just asked?
Are you talking about the reported rate, or are you talking about the real rate?
In fact, right now, I don't even care what rate it is as an absolute number. So, but it's non-zero, right? It's above zero, right?
It's always going to be above zero. It's
right.
Vaccine.
Okay. So pick a number. Pick a number between that.
No, I'm not going to do that. No, I'm going to look it up.
Okay, look it up.
Because you've talked about this before and you got it completely wrong in one video. You were like, 1 out of 1,000 gets Guillain-Barré. And I'm like, what are you talking about? That is not a thing.
No, I didn't say that.
Guillain-Barré is one example of a negative outcome.
Out of remember what the question is. The question is, 1,000 people get vaccinated. How many of the 1,000 who get vaccinated end up in the hospital with a serious side effect from the vaccine?
Okay, so you're not just looking for adverse side effects. You're looking for hospitalization.
Yeah, hospitalization because of the vaccine. And hospitalization implies it's serious. So we're not talking about the fakers who's just an owie on my arm. I'm not talking about that. That they're actually taken in and hospitalized. The doctor says, "Yep, we need to look at you."
Let's see.
I think I know the answer, but I'll see what you find. Different sources have different answers. There's a range. In fact, you and I are both entertainers, so people in the live stream chat, type what your guess is. 1,000 people take the vaccine. How many of them go to the hospital from a serious side effect? They're hospitalized. They have to go to the hospital. Type in a number out of 1,000. Doug thinks he's so clever.
I'm getting a lot of different numbers. But a lot of them are not consistent with hospitalization.
Yeah, it's actually very tough to find the answer to that question. Daniel Cooper says, I guess it's a pretty low number out of 1,000. But single digits wouldn't surprise me. Lono says 69 out of 1,000.
because a lot of the studies that have been done on hospitalization have been done on people who got COVID after vaccination.
It's tough to find that because the number is low. No, that's not the reason why it's tough to find. Awesome. It's because
they're keeping it a secret.
No.
Sorry.
No, it's just
you'd have to.
It's in the literature, but it's not. It doesn't answer the question in the way. Like usually, they take one specific serious side effect, and then
the problem is
it's hard to do it as a compiled. Like that's why it's difficult.
Well, I don't know that they would even break it down.
They have broken it down for certain things like heart. What do you call that? Heart one, myocarditis. They've broken it down for stuff like that, but for all the various side effects that one could be hospitalized for from getting the vaccine.
Well, I mean, they have to report them to VAERS, the vaccine adverse event. They're called I don't know that you can actually find whether or not the adverse event resulted in hospitalization, but anaphylaxis would result in hospitalizations, and that's just a basic allergic reaction. I mean, it's severe, but
okay. Well, you said you knew the number, so you don't know the number?
No, I didn't. I said I know it's not the number you think it is.
How do you know that?
Because yours is going to be too high.
You know what I think the correct answer is?
Go ahead. What is it?
2. 2 out of 1,000. It's actually between 1 and 2.
That ended up hospitalized?
Yeah.
Hospitalized. Where did you get that?
From a source, from a link, from the several journals.
I think it was that goofy guy that was misreading it, because I remember looking this stuff up before, and that is not a correct number.
Do you think that's too high? Between 1 and 2? Okay, but
2 out of 1,000. I think that's too high.
Okay, but what I said earlier, the point is actually not even the absolute number. Let's say that 2 is correct, even though it is not. Can you work with me on that or no? Are you willing to go there to pretend it's the right number? Can you pretend?
Yeah.
Because I'm making a broader point because we were talking about kids before. So let's say 2 out of every 1,000 people go to the hospital from a serious side effect because of the vaccine. Let's say for a certain age group, let's say a 10-year-old boy. Again, I'm not saying these numbers are true. I'm saying let's pretend. Let's pretend that a 10-year-old boy who doesn't take the vaccine and gets COVID, 1 out of 1,000 10-year-old boys end up in the hospital. You with me?
No. What were you saying? For every one boy that gets COVID?
So we got a pool of 1,000 10-year-old boys, and 1 out of 10 of them, they all get COVID, but 1 out of 10 of them has to go to the hospital. 1 out of 1,000, sorry, has to go to the hospital because they got COVID. You with me? So 1 out of 1,000 10-year-old boys goes to the hospital because they got COVID. They're not vaccinated. They go 1,000 boys, 10 years old, go to the hospital because they got COVID. Just 1 out of 1,000. But 2 out of 1,000 10-year-old boys go to the hospital because they have been vaccinated and they didn't get COVID. Now, here's my question for you. Should 10-year-old boys take the vaccine?
No, I think that virus would be a failure, wouldn't it?
My question for you is, should 10-year-old boys take the vaccine if 2 out of 1,000 go to the hospital from the vaccine and 1 out of 1,000 go to the hospital because of the virus?
I think that they should get the vaccine, but there are good reasons for that. One, remember what I told you. Don't feed viruses. You don't feed them. So if you can prevent people from getting it, that is much better.
Let me tighten up the question, because from the perspective of the 10-year-old boy, Should they
Mhm.
take the vaccine if 1 out of 1,000 of them go to the hospital if they're not vaccinated, but 2 of them out of 1,000 go to the hospital if they are? From the perspective of the 10-year-old boy only, should that 10-year-old boy take the vaccine?
If he's informed, yes, he should.
This is basic math, Jefferson.
No.
This is risk-reward ratios.
Okay, if he's selfish and short-sighted, then yes, he should do that.
Remember how I prefaced it? I knew you were going to go here, so I prefaced it from the perspective of the boy only. So
Right.
that means he's only concerned about his own health,
right,
and not the health of others.
Right. Why are we talking to a 10-year-old boy about what we need to do about epidemiology?
Why are we talking to this is
your hypothetical, dude. Why are we talking? Right.
The correct answer, Jefferson, is no. The 10-year-old boy should not, because he doubles his risk of going to the hospital if he takes the vaccine.
But he doesn't double it. 1, he doesn't necessarily double his rate of death. 2, he decreases his chances of getting the virus. 3, he decreases his chances of spreading that virus to others. He also isn't as sick for as long, because he might be one of the 2 in 1,000, but odds are he will not be. It's still better for him, I think, to take the shot. Not only for his safety, but for the immunization needs of the entire population around him, even his family.
See, watch what I'm going to do here, and you're going to totally change your mind. Has nothing to do with COVID. It's just a generic disease and a generic drug. If the risks of the drug outweigh the benefits, should you take that drug?
Generally, no. Your doctor won't even give it to you.
If the risks of taking the COVID vaccine outweigh the benefits, should you take the COVID vaccine?
No.
If 2 out of 1,000 10-year-old boys go to the hospital because of the COVID vaccine, and 1 goes to the hospital because of getting the virus, should they take the vaccine? In other words, I'm saying the risk outweighs the benefit.
Yes.
Why? If the risk outweighs the benefit?
Because it's not just about them.
From their perspective, from their choice. You notice you didn't say from their perspective when I talked about the generic drug.
Yes. From their perspective, they should get that shot. Yes.
But the risk outweighs the benefit.
The comparison,
the risk outweighs the benefit for them in this hypothetical.
You've got a kid, right? Hang on. Yes, the risk has increased. So now 2 out of 1,000 kids are going to end up having to go to the hospital for something as due to reactions from these 1,000 shots, right? All 1,000, all 1,000 get vaccinated, right? Or you've got this other pool of 1,000 over here. They don't get the shots. Only one of them ends up sick with COVID bad enough to end up in the hospital. How sick were the other 999? And how many people did they spread that to? In this
example, what we're looking at is merely hospitalization.
The kid should get the shot. He's not looking at certain death, right?
Why didn't you talk this way when I made it generic?
Because the language that you used in the other one, if the risk of taking the medication is greater than whatever the medication is used to treat, should you take it? No. In fact, that's the reason that doctors give you the medication. But
they'll still be sick. Like on a generic disease,
listen to me.
Still get sick?
No. Listen to me. This is how you said
suffering.
You said if this drug has more risks than what it treats, should you take it? No, you shouldn't. And then you try to turn that around and say, aha. So if 2 kids out of 1,000 get a shot that makes them sick, should they take that risk? Because what you're trying to say is that is the equivalent of the risk of that drug not being good enough to mitigate the harms of the illness. But you haven't demonstrated that. You've just shown that 2 kids might end up in the hospital if they get vaccinated versus 1 kid who's going to end up in the hospital if he gets COVID. Right? This does not follow at all. You have failed this. This is a failure. The kid should still. The vaccine is still more beneficial to the kid than taking the shot.
A generic disease, and a generic drug.
Yes.
if the risks outweigh the benefits of taking that,
We've already gone over this. No,
but
because your
listen to me.
doctor won't prescribe that. Your doctor should not be prescribing a drug that is more risky
Do you
than
think
the
all
condition
drugs are
you have.
prescribed to all demographics?
Yes. The general rule of thumb in prescribing a medication is that the risk of the side effects is much less than the untreated condition that you were looking to get, some kind of help for.
Because with the
They all
generic
have side
disease,
effects.
with the generic disease, if you do not take this drug, you're still going to get sick. If you don't take the COVID vaccine, you're still going to get sick. We didn't factor that in. You didn't factor that in.
I've never gotten COVID. I've been vaccinated. I've had no side effects. Huh?
Why did you? What's the purpose of you saying I've never gotten COVID?
Because what you said. If you get the shot, you're going to get sick. If you don't get the shot, you're going to get sick.
No, what I'm saying is that if you don't take this generic drug for this generic disease, you still might get the disease, but you don't take the drug because the risk of taking the drug outweigh the benefits of fighting that disease. That's not to say you won't get that disease and suffer from it.
I don't understand what you're talking about. Here's the
parallel. That's how you were defending the COVID vaccine.
No.
Saying, but what about the people getting sick from getting the virus?
No, listen to me, because this is a confused and tortured hypothetical. Let's say that what we're talking about is, it depends on the treatment. Do you have high blood pressure? No, don't admit that. Let's say you've got an individual high blood pressure. Affects lots of people, lots of different treatments out there available for it. Most of those treatments come with a lot of side effects, even though they're basic drugs, right? But the side effects, it's determined, it's much better to deal with the side effects of a blood pressure medication than to deal with untreated elevated blood pressure, right? So the risk reward, that's set up that way, right? Okay.
Right.
What you seem to be saying is, let's say there's a situation where I could take a drug to prevent diabetes, but the drug is probably going to give me cancer or maybe a worse form of diabetes. There's a risk that it's going to give me the diabetes anyway, right? Should I take it, right? Is that where you're trying to go?
What I'm trying to say is that if the risks of a drug outweigh the benefits of the drug, you shouldn't take the drug.
That's basic pharmacology. Yes.
And you and I agreed. And so if the risks of taking the COVID vaccine outweigh the benefits, you shouldn't take the COVID vaccine either.
But if 2 kids out of 1,000 have that issue, that does not mean that the benefits of that vaccine have been outweighed by the risks. Do you not see?
So what I'm talking about, this is all within the context of a hypothetical, because I know if we get into the numbers, then we're getting into the weeds, and you'll disagree with the numbers. But with COVID, that's why I asked you the question, do you think all drugs affect all people equally and all diseases? Because COVID was an interesting virus.
Was that the question that you asked? I thought you were asking about dosing protocols. Like, do doctors treat their patients more or less? No. In that case, age does change things. Yes.
Right. Age changes things. So the risks of COVID to a 10-year-old is different than the risks of COVID for an 85-year-old. Agreed?
It could be. Yeah.
Okay. So if we're looking at the benefit and risk ratio, then that ratio is going to change for a 10-year-old versus an 85-year-old. Agreed? Because the risk has changed.
Well, actually, for this particular example, I think the risks were the same.
The risk of a 10-year-old is the same as the risk of an 85-year-old of COVID in 2021 with Delta?
Oh, no.
No.
Well, just you're talking about the virus now, not the vaccine.
Right. I'm talking about the virus.
The virus. Yeah. No, the kid's probably going to be able to handle it better.
Okay. So the risk of a 10-year-old is different than the risk of an 85-year-old. So now if we're looking at the benefit of the vaccine to prevent it, the benefit has to be way higher to make the ratio equal for both age groups. So this is my point. When you start actually delving into the data and asking the question, how many 10-year-olds end up in hospital with a serious side effect or a serious complication from COVID? And then ask the question, how many end up in the hospital from a serious side effect of actually taking the vaccine? And from their perspective and from their choice, we're not talking about mutations or anything, just the choice of a patient on whether or not to take a drug or a vaccine. If that risk reward ratio is not lined up, then you can say, yeah, the 85-year-old should take the vaccine, but maybe not the 10-year-old, because the risk ratio rewards are different for the 85-year-old and the 10-year-old. That's all I'm saying. And
Right, but
that is
that's
so incredibly reasonable. I don't know how anybody on planet Earth could disagree with it. Then the real question is, what are those numbers?
wait. Let's get to the initial point. The reason that we are talking past each other is because you are talking about this from the perspective of a patient making a choice about a particular kind of care.
Right.
I'm thinking about it from the perspective of how do epidemiologists want to prevent an outbreak? How do
Right.
they want to
And I
stop
understood
the
that.
pandemic?
That's why I said,
If that's the case, that kid needs to get that shot.
right. So you're talking about from the society's point of view, and I'm talking about it from the patient's point of view, which is why
Yes.
we were talking past each other. But do you agree that and I can actually agree with you that from a society's point of view, you could be right because of, the kid, even though the kid might be, oh, I got COVID, who cares? They're fine. They could transmit it to other people who might die. I get it. However, from the patient's point of view, and if you live in a free country and you get to choose what drugs you take or not take, and you're looking at the reward and risk ratios, then it may be true that from their perspective, a 10-year-old, 15-year-old, 20-year-old even, because COVID treats them differently than a 70, 80, 90-year-old, that maybe the vaccine did not provide enough benefit for them to prevent the risks of COVID.
Now you're changing it.
No.
Because your original hypothetical was that 2 of them were going to definitely end up in the hospital. And in the other group, 1 of them was going to end up in the hospital because they got infected with COVID.
How did that change anything?
Because the benefits to vaccination go beyond your own individual health. I know that you've accepted this, but if you're talking about somebody making a decision,
I'm talking about from their perspective.
And their perspective is unnecessarily
their own health,
blinkered.
and they don't care about anybody else dying. That's what I mean.
They should still get the shot.
That's not the question, what they should do. The question is, does that the reward risk benefit, is it the same for them as compared to the 85-year-old? Answer, no. And I think you understand that and agree with that. But you're coming from the societal point of view.
They might be taking a higher risk, but the question is, are they somehow not benefiting? Let's put it this way. Let's say
I got to go soon, by the way.
Okay, whatever the strain that's currently going around, 10-year-old kids, 99% of them won't feel a thing. 1% of them get really, really sick. Really sick. Just 1% of them. Like deathbed. Like they will probably end up intubated. But the other 99%, they may even mostly be asymptomatic. Not a problem. Now, you flip it around, all things being equal, you've got 1,000 kids that all get vaccinated for that exact strain of COVID, right? And it's effective, right? But 2 of those kids are going to end up for a little bit of time in the hospital with something, maybe a mild bout of anaphylaxis. They got to get on the Benadryl, something like that, right? But what you end up having happen, right? In both of those situations, the 1,000 kids, or all the kids that the 99% of those kids that got sick, and the 1% that ended up almost dying, they're all spreading this back and forth to each other, and it is mutating and building up new resistance and changing and layering generation after generation inside their bodies. The longer it's there.
I know you're giving the societal reason. I understand that.
But if you're trying to tell me what would the kid do versus what should he do kind of thing, if I'm talking to a person and they're giving me the reasons that you're giving, I'm going to tell them you're only looking at a tiny fraction of the reason why you need to get vaccinated. And if all you're thinking is this doesn't benefit me immediately, fuck it, I'm not doing it. That's not why you get vaccinated. If they don't understand that, then maybe they should get some remedial classes.
But you understand you can keep 85-year-olds away from 10-year-olds too.
Yeah, but they didn't do that.
I know, but you could.
You could, but we didn't. We didn't do either of those things.
I know,
you could just mandate the shots.
Like
we could do that.
People have this idea that a ton of kids died in the U.S. from COVID. It's simply not true. Well, it depends on how you define ton. I got the data right here in front of me because I used to track it every month. In 2020, the average monthly death rate of people under 30, so 30-year-olds are not kids, but 154 a month, 22,259 per average per month for people over 65. 154 for kids or 30 and younger, which is like young adults, and 22,000 for people 65 and older. In 2021, it was 378 average died per month for people under 30. Over 65, 26,000. COVID was an old person magnet. It killed old people. And so you don't treat old people and young people the same when it comes to vaccinations, because COVID didn't treat people the same when it came to.
Hang on. When you are talking about that, you are talking out of both sides of your mouth now. You are not talking about a flu shot. You're not talking about a virus that other people in the community have had, different immunities have had a response to this. You were talking about, and it's incredibly important to emphasize this, and then we'll get out of here. It is a novel virus. It's a novel virus. That means nobody is, if you get exposed to it, you will get it, and it will learn from you. It will change. Every time it gets a new victim, it's learning something a little new, and it's getting weirder. And there's no guarantee that that's going to make it safer. So even though you can be like, I've heard this shit before from other like, vaccine freaks that are like, oh, you can't get the jab, the kids will be fine. This is not fucking chickenpox. You do not feed this virus victims. And if you give it to kids, that's all you're doing. They're going to keep passing it. It's going to grow like crazy.
Well,
and
we knew,
right?
We knew, like, I agree with you when it comes to novel viruses, you don't know, right? Because novel means new. But after, like, by early 2021, we started to understand, okay, yeah, it does kill mostly old people. So we got
But that didn't change the fact that you needed to keep it out of the population of kids.
And I was actually okay with that.
But you also needed to keep it out of things like the population of like mink, right? A bunch of mink got sick in Denmark, and they got one of the strains
minks
right through. Mink, yeah, the little marmots.
Minks. Yeah, you don't say mink, it's minks, right?
Is minks plural?
I think it's minks, not mink. Like, you have one minx, not one mink. Am I sorry? I little things like this bother me. I hate it when people say, you probably don't like sports because you're a progressive, but
it is minks. You're right.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. There's probably some of your viewers like NFL. If you say offsides, I get frustrated because it's offside singular. Anyhow, you don't watch NFL, right?
Yeah.
NFL. Oh, you do? Yeah. Next time you watch NFL, you'll hear the announcers on TV, because they're idiots. They'll say that player went offsides, or sometimes it's encroachment.
Yeah, they say it all the time.
Yeah, they say. But if you listen to the referee, they'll say offside singular to number 46 or whatever. So that's why
the players turned announcers have just lost it. But anyway, my point is, you're hypothetical about the kid. The benefit to that kid is to get that shot, because what you were trying to compare does not apply.
Nope, you don't get the shot and you let grandpa die.
Well, grandpa, the rest of his community, then
you
it
save on Social Security.
Weirder. It gets into the deer, then it turns into measles.
We saved so much money from COVID with all those old people dying.
How much did it cost us to treat all those people, man?
I mean, that's but we should,
and all the people.
We should just let the old people die.
All the people that left the profession, all those people making that money in medical professions, they burned out and quit, and now they don't pay those taxes.
But we enriched Pfizer and Moderna. I mean, these huge corporations. We should have just let.
Aren't they both international?
Well, Pfizer is European based, but where is it? Is it based in the United States?
I think I thought Pfizer was.
But it doesn't matter. Corporations are bad no matter what country they're from. They don't pay their fair share of taxes. And here we are enriching them when all we could have done is just let the virus take its course. Like after, by early 2021, we knew it affected old people. And at that point, we should just said, sorry, grandpa, sorry, grandma, you lived a good life.
I'm glad you're putting this on here, because you were concerned about me calling myself a traitor, but you were joking about literal genocide. I mean, that's what you're deciding to do as a
genocide.
As it is genocide.
It's nature taking its course.
No, it's not.
Sure, nature is COVID.
How do you know?
Or do you think it was made by man in a lab?
Yeah. What if it was? Then it really is genocide.
Jefferson believes it's man-made.
I do not. Okay. It could have come out of a lab, but if it came out of a lab, I think they probably got it out of a bat or squeezed it out of a pangolin.
Anyhow, I'm dehydrated because we've been talking too long, and now I got a headache, and maybe I have COVID, but gosh darn it, I'm not taking the vaccine.
You should do that. I mean, for your health. Do you get flu shots?
I have in the past, but no. Like, I work from home, so my risk of interacting and getting the flu from anybody is lower than the average human. So yeah, but I think you and I are in the same in this aspect. Like,
No.
if you die, no. I mean, like, if you die, you die, right?
I mean, yeah.
Like, you don't cling to life, do you?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
Like, would you rather die at 90 with no hearing, no eyesight, your memory's going, or would you rather die at 70 from a car accident?
Ask me when I get there.
Yeah. See, I ask myself these questions in the privacy of my own home, and I wonder, and sometimes I flip flop, but I've seen my dad's uncles, like great uncles, and unfortunately, my genetics is so good that I am scared that I'm going to live to be 100, and I don't want to live to be 100. So here's my plan.
Why not?
Because what I said, like, my uncles and aunts, they all have gone blind and deaf, and it's a horrible existence. And so here's my plan. Tell me what you think of it. When I turn 65, I'm going to start smoking and drinking heavily to make sure I don't live to 100. What do you think of that?
You used to be a smoker, right?
No, never been a smoker. I've had the odd cigar, but who hasn't?
Oh, I thought you used to smoke.
Nope.
Oh.
What do you think of that idea? Age 65, maybe 70, start smoking and drinking to make sure you don't live. And I save society a lot of money, like on Social Security. Like, if it's true, I'm going to live to 100 because of my genetics. I don't want to be a burden to society.
What makes you think that you're going to, like, depending on your genetics, what makes you think you're going to die any younger when you take those up?
Oh, that's a good point. But at least I'll have fun, right?
No.
No?
No, you'll feel terrible. You'll just feel like shit on top of getting older.
From the booze, smoking, or both?
Hell yeah, both. Yeah, they feel terrible.
Have you been a smoker?
Oh yeah. I used to be a smoker for on and off for about 8 years, and then I quit in 20.
But nicotine is such a fun, good drug.
Nicotine's not what I like. I found that out when they came out with, like, the vapes, and they're just nicotine and vapor. I'd smoke one of those, puff on one of them, and they would just make me kind of shaky and sweaty, kind of nervous, but they didn't make me feel good. No, I need tobacco. The alkaloids in the tobacco, that's what I'm addicted to. They give me a head rush. I miss that feeling. Yeah. But I don't miss the feeling 20 minutes after that when you feel like you might pass out. Or I was starting to get, like, heart palpitations and things like that. So I quit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I guess that would suck. What about drinking? Have you ever been oh, yeah, you are a hard drinker. Don't drink and die.
Yeah. I drink way too much. I mean, it comes and goes. I will quit. I will not drink anything for 3 weeks or 4 weeks, and then I'll kind of overdo it on a weekend or something like that. So
what's a drug I can take to make sure I won't live to 100?
Heroin?
Cocaine?
I mean, if you're looking, I don't recommend cocaine at that age because you'll probably have a really bad heart attack, and that would be painful and frightening. Maybe heroin. I don't know. I'm thinking something that, like, calms you down and gives you euphoria.
Or maybe just go parachuting when I'm 80 or 70.
I know people that
forget to pull the cord.
You know what would be the worst thing about that?
What? Living?
Waiting. That
wait.
fall.
No, that would be fun. I think if you want to commit suicide, I can't. I've got to be careful. If you want to unlive yourself, I think jumping out of a plane would be the best way to go.
No.
It'd be like a Splash Mountain ride that lasts, like, for 2 minutes.
No, you know what I'd be wondering?
What are you going to
feel it? I'm going to feel it.
You're not going to feel it.
Yeah, you will.
You're going at what speed at that time?
How do you know? How do you know that you're not?
I had a friend who did it, and he told me.
Maynard? Yeah. I'll believe that.
Okay,
all right,
I really got to go. See ya.
Catch you later. All right, folks, I'm going to wrap this up. I was on for way too long, so thank you, everybody in the chat. Thanks for the super chats. Let's see. smoke some weed, get I think, yeah, I should have recommended weed, but I don't know. It depends. I've heard of people like taking on, if they've never smoked weed and they get into it in their, in their later years, they get more of the bad. I don't know if that's based on anything like actual science or something like that, but it seems like, smoking since 15. Whew. Yeah. I mean, I think the first time I tried one was, oh God, I think I was 19 when I tried a cigarette. And then I didn't smoke at all until I smoked through most of my 30s. Anyway, all right, folks, I'm going to get out of here. Thank you all for the super chats. Thanks for the chats. I'm sorry I didn't highlight as much of them, but Doug and I were in the full conversation there. So I'm going to wrap this up since it's almost 4 hours. Good Lord, I haven't done one of these in a long time, and I need to get up and move around. All right, well, hopefully I will catch you all later, but yeah, I will be back hopefully on possibly Sunday to do another one. So, all right, folks, take care. Have a great night.